5 seconds, Mr. Hart. You're live.
Thank you. Good evening. This is the Auburn Finance Committee meeting. It is March 12, 2025. It's about 5:30 p.m. This will be our call to order. Let me read our remote participation script. As of July 2023, this open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, it's 1-786-535-3211 with an access code of 991-599-357. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note, this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Doesn't appear we have anybody appearing remotely, but let me just do the roll call. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Michael Marshall.
Here.
Patrick Jones.
Here.
George Graham.
Here.
Stephen Consiglio.
Here.
Andrew Shaw.
Here.
Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnoy.
Here.
And Administrative Assistant Daniel Chamberlain Roberts.
Here.
Okay, and we're not going to do any roll call votes because it appears that we're all present here currently. So this evening we have one transfer to go through. Let's do our transfer first. This one is from DDIS Board of Health. It is a intra-departmental transfer coming from the health clerical account. The amount requested is $16,500 going to the, I believe that is ACO, Animal Control Officer backup account. Reason given for the transfer: to cover a salary deficit in the budget account.
Hi, good evening.
Well, how are you? Would you like to give us some background on this transfer?
Yes, thank you very much. So in the past year, we've had some significant changes in the animal control division. We've had some unforeseen staffing changes, and also looking at the department in total, we realized that we needed to have some more depth to the department. So animal control, as you may or may not know, it's 24/7. We do have a full-time animal control officer, and we do have some assistant animal control officers that we have hired in the past year. And those animal control officers are meant to provide backup to off hours, holidays, and weekends. So we have restructured the department to make it a stronger department, and being able to respond to a various amount of calls in animal control needs. The transfer request, also in the department, we did have some staffing challenges in other vacancy positions due to some medical leaves and some employees that had departed. So we had a surplus in one line item for salary, and we're looking to move that over to be able to handle the changes that we've made in the animal control division. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I just ask what that account is that it's coming from, that there's that much in the health clerical account?
Sure, yes, that's the Board of Health division. So that's the clerical. We have a DDIS clerk in that position that was out for medical. And so that created a surplus in that account. And with the changes that we had in the animal control division, it allowed us to be able to asked for that request. So we're keeping it within the department. We didn't need to, fortunately, request anything from the reserve account. So it's moving from one division to another.
I'm guessing we'll see some changes in your budget, so you're up tonight, so you can probably get to more in-depth when we get to the
Absolutely.
full presentation. Any other questions relative to the transfer?
Just a quick follow-up. So you have more coverage. Where did the calls go before the part-timers were in place, if the ACO wasn't available?
So the calls, if the backup animal control officers were not available, they would actually go to our full-time animal control officer. So obviously, you can imagine Charity works the full-time hours, and so she would have to respond in the off hours if we didn't have backup. And I can tell you that that actually did happen quite often in the past fiscal year.
So the backup is like on call as opposed to scheduled hours?
Well, they are scheduled for off hours, weekends, nights, and holidays. So I use that term backup. It's an assistant animal control officer to the full-time animal control officer and inspector.
Any additional questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move right into our FY '26 budgets for this evening. The first one up is the Senior Center / Elder Affairs. We have Jean Gillette from the Senior Center. If you'd like to come up and give us an overview of your budget.
Oh, your agenda's not the same as mine.
Good evening. Did you want to give us a
I do. I just wanted
presentation
to,
then?
I prepared. Good evening, members of the Finance Committee. My name's Jean Billette, and I'm the Director of the Auburn Senior Center. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my fiscal year '26 budget. I'm excited to share the work we've been doing at the Senior Center, especially considering the limited staffing that we have, just one full-time employee and 2 part-time employees. We also have 3 part-time van drivers, and the majority of our work is made possible through the dedication of our volunteers. And I just wanted to take a moment to give them a special shout out for their invaluable support. Auburn has approximately 5,067 residents aged 60 and older. And just some statistics for you, in 2024, our Meals on Wheels program delivered around 23,066 meals, and we provided over 8,000 congregate lunches at the Senior Center. The SHINE program assisted over 138 local residents, and on any given day, we have approximately 87 unduplicated individuals attending the Senior Center. Of course, for bigger events, we have more people, and some people don't sign in, so that's an issue. We also provide transportation services for approximately 89 residents, offering a total of 3,312 rides in 2024, and this is through our contract with the WRTA. The budget before you covers expenses for the maintenance, operation, and the capital improvements of the Senior Center, as well as staff salaries. The outreach coordinator position is funded through the state formula grant. All other costs, such as programming, activities, and instructor fees, are funded through fundraising efforts, donations, FASCA, and our state formula grant. Our mission is to offer a wide range of services to Auburn seniors, including social connections, physical, health and wellness, mental stimulation, emotional support, safety and security, nutritional assistance, access to resources, affordable recreation, and a sense of purpose. Above all, we want every senior who comes through our doors to know they have a friend of us. Thank you for your time and your continued support.
Questions relative to the senior budget? No. I guess,
You all have a copy of the newsletter, our most recent.
yes, you gave us all a newsletter that was provided to us. That's, Jean put that together yourself, right? Can you just explain, like, how many programs you offer? And and the fact that programming
So
is,
we offer a good variety of programs, and I did have them all listed out. So every day, we have a bunch of fitness classes. That's at 10 o'clock. I'm going to talk too much to stop me.
No, just
So
an
so like
overall,
senior
yeah.
sweat, chair dance, cardio classic blast, yoga, strength and balance, meditation, walking club, and Tai Chi. Then for social events, we always have entertainment on Mondays. We do offer day and overnight trips. For arts and crafts, we have floral arranging, knit and stitch, quilting, educational programs, we have technology help, we have health screenings, blood pressure clinics, Meals on Wheels, as I said, nutrition workshops. We also have some support groups such as caregiver support, loss and grief, American Sign Language, and a new men's club. So those are some of the activities that we have. And then, of course, we always have bingo on Thursdays, which attracts about maybe 60 people. Card games such as pitch, cribbage, bridge, dominoes, coloring club, canasta, and iPad. So those are some of the activities.
so of all those programs that you offer, the only true cost to the taxpayers is that one program coordinator to coordinate those programs? You're saying the rest is all done through fundraising and grants, is that, am I correct? Is that what I
Yep,
heard?
state formula grant.
And what kind of cost would there be? So you, by applying for those state formula grants,
So we don't apply for the state formula grant. The state formula grant is based on the 2020 census. So we have, I can give you that number, I have that. Give me 1 second. So we receive $15 per elder based on the 2020 census of 4,713 people. So our formula grant is $70,695 for the year, which supplements the outreach coordinator and fitness instructors. And I can use that money too for whatever's needed for senior center needs.
and just the transportation piece, you mentioned a relationship with the WRTA. So do we provide the drivers for the vehicles?
We
And
do.
the RTA
So right
provides
now,
the-
we have contract for $43,749, which reimburses the salaries and the gasoline of the vehicles. We pay for the insurance, and we have 2 vans. And we have 3 drivers, which are part-time, no more than 15 hours a week for each driver.
So you mentioned that's reimbursed, but we see a cost on here for drivers and for gas. Are those costs reimbursed at a later date, or maybe that's one for Karen?
Depending, the money comes back, it goes to the general fund.
So if we reimburse via the RTA. And just my last question is, you mentioned a number of, you have some statistics there. Is this on is your numbers up from the previous year?
Yes. Yeah, I don't have numbers to give you a comparison from last year to this year, but these are the numbers that I did through my senior center, to give me just, some roundabout numbers for you.
But just your services provided and your costs have gone up, and that's reflected in a very slight budget increase for this fiscal year. Okay.
I did have one question along the grant. On the state formula grant that we're discussing at the moment, is there another grant as well as that grant, or is it just that the only grant you get?
That's the only grant we get, the state formula grant.
And how secure would you say that is? Because it's based on the 2020 census, so is the next census, is it going to be based off of 2030? Is it every decade? Because we're now in 2025 doing 2026's
I
budget.
believe it's every 10 years.
That's why I
Based on
said
the census
2030
number.
probably will
Yep,
be
and
the
we,
next.
years ago, it was $10 an elder, and they've managed to get it up to $15 an hour. I mean, not an hour, $15 per person.
Per elder, right? Okay, so you're looking at maybe 2030, because they were probably based on maybe 400 or 500 seniors back in 2020, and obviously that number has increased, but the grant hasn't. So you're working with more people and less money. So it's about every decade. Great, thank you. Okay.
I have a question. I always see the buses there, so the buses basically live at the senior center?
Yes.
And are those providing like rides to doctor stuff, or is that more just for events, or?
No,
How
so
do
what
they get
happens,
deployed?
so as I said, we have contract, we have 2 of the vans, and we have 3 drivers. So through the WRTA, when a senior age 60 and over, or a younger person with disabilities can call the WRTA. They'll make an account. Right now, it's free fare through June 30th, 2025. So you'll say, you know, I'm Stephen, I want to set up an account, I want to go to Reliant on Friday at 10 o'clock. They'll take down the information, you just want to call 2 days ahead of time, and what they'll do is they'll schedule that ride for you, and then that morning of the ride, we get a manifest for the drivers, so they know to go pick you up. And usually it's about like a 20-minute window, so if you have to be there for 10, they'll pick you up probably around 9:30. If there's someone else along the way, they'll pick up that person as well and take them to their destinations and then pick them back up and take them back to their house. So it's for medical, if you want to go grocery shopping, if you want to go to the senior center, getting your hair done, anything like that. If you wanted to visit someone that's in assisted living or a nursing home, we'll do that as well, just as long as you do that 2 days in advance.
Do you ever run like a shuttle? I would assume, because you've got the housing department has housing there, and then there's housing on the other side of town. Do you ever do anything to help people cross town to go to different events at the senior center?
Yep, so same thing. What they would do, if they want to come to the senior center, you would call the WRTA and just schedule that ride. So we would take people, we've had people from Packagug that aren't really ambulatory and can't walk over, and the vans will go and pick them up. Same thing if they're at St. Joseph's, we'll go pick them up. I mean, not St. Stoneville Heights. Yep.
And the two vans and the 3 part-timers, that's enough to fulfill all the needs generally?
For right now, we do have one driver that picked up Wednesdays. So we have just one driver on Mondays and Fridays, and then we had 2 drivers for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays.
Any additional questions?
Motion to recommend?
I just have one. You said that you're the only full-timer, and then you have 2 part-timers? Is that all under director salary, or is that, I don't understand. I don't see the other people getting paid, but I don't know.
So my salary, and then Kristen Pappas has a split position where she is under program coordinator, and then she's director of recreation. And then my other outreach coordinator, who works 30 hours a week, she's paid by the formula grant. And that's all I have.
So the formula grant doesn't only do for the programs, it also pays salaries for...
Exactly. Yep, for outreach coordinator, that's what you use it for. Yes.
That adds a layer. Yep, okay. Motion, I'll second it.
We have a motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend.
Yeah, I'll second it.
So, with a motion and a second to recommend the senior center elder affairs budget, $196,875 for FY '26. All in favor?
Aye.
Gene, good
Thank
job.
you.
Veteran Services. It's after the library. It's in the same section.
Do you have it?
Yeah, you gotta scroll back. It's in the same,
Next page.
It's a couple pages back.
it's in the Department of Public Services, but it's,
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, there it is. It's behind you. I got it. Thank you.
yeah.
3 or 4 more pages.
Okay, the next budget we're going to review is Veteran Services, and Karen, you're going to speak to the Veteran Services budget?
Yes, I will, thank you. I'll just give an overview of the Veteran Services. So the components that are in here is for the salary of the Veteran Services Officer, who we did have a change in the employee starting this past January. So that's budgeted for a part-time position. And then we have just some miscellaneous supplies and conferences, and then we have the relief and medical, which is being level funded. Right now, we do have 15 individuals that are being paid monthly, and it's almost $11,000. So it would seem like maybe there's not enough in here for the 115, but we have some individuals that do come and go, so we're going to level fund it for fiscal year '26 and keep an eye on it at that level.
Can you explain especially for our newer members, and remind me, because every year, so this is a unique one where we have state guidelines relative to what we have to provide for veterans, depending on the number of veterans, and that we split the position with other communities? Can you
Yes, that
explain
actually is true. So what is budgeted in here is, on the roster, you can see, so it's a part-time VSO, the Veteran Services Officer, and then we also pay for a regional agreement, which is budgeted at $9,275, where we have a regional agreement, we pay the town of Southbridge towards the salary of the director there, because we have to have that according to the state. We're required to have that position. So we don't have that here in Auburn, but we can do it as a regional.
What does relief and medical encompass exactly? Is that like personal care assistance for veterans, or is that?
No, actually, that's a type of an income supplement, I guess I would say. They have to provide, proof of what they earn, and if they have a certain threshold of income, then they're eligible to receive these extra benefits as being veterans.
Comes through the town and not through the federal government?
Well, actually, it is reimbursed 75% from the state, but it's like a year behind. So we do get 75% back of what we spend in here.
Patrick?
So I'm big on presentation. So when I looked at this and I looked at the backup, I see vacant. So the first thing I thought of was that the Southbridge position isn't filled.
Well, what was happening at the time is the Auburn position was actually vacant. And we recently, in January, we filled that position. The prior person had left, and then we brought someone in. So there's two components of that, the officer and then the regional, which is the director.
So the clarity then comes that the vacant position is really meant to be for Auburn.
Correct.
It was vacant, now it's filled, it's a part-time person.
Yes.
And then that part-time position falls to a hierarchy, which is sort of in another community, but sort of takes over. It's like, because it says regional agreement, so that director sort of oversees a region.
Right, there are other towns that, I think Oxford's part of it. I'm not sure which other town.
Is that $26,000 the annual salary for this position?
That's the annual salary for the part-time Veteran Services Officer that is here twice a week
Right.
in Auburn. And then the $9,275, that's the payment that actually goes towards the director's salary for Southbridge.
And this is the amount that was approved by town meeting back when the budget was pushed through? The 26, oh no, wait, I'm sorry, we're doing 26 budget. So we're taking into account that this is going to be fully funded for next year.
Correct, yes.
I stand corrected. I was thinking, what about the money this year, if it's been vacant? But I know what happens to that, so, okay, thank you.
Additional questions? I just had one for myself, and maybe you've covered it and I just didn't catch. So I see department request was 28.5, but town manager's recommendation was 36.1 for the salary line. Is that the, what we just talked about, is that the combined?
Yes, actually, I do believe when this Veteran Services Officer came in, that he came in a little bit higher than some of the previous officers did.
So the 36 is the 26 plus 9?
Correct, that'll cover both of those salary components, yes.
Thank you.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
I have a motion to recommend the budget for the subtotal for veterans, the veteran services this year, $151,398. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is cable and community television.
Hi, Chris.
Chris Hugo, would you like to give us a presentation on this year's budget?
Well, it's pretty much just level funding from last year. We just moved 500 out of legal into new equipment.
Can you talk a little bit about what, other than the obvious, what cable television does and the
Well, we
programs?
cover about 10 committees: Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, Finance, Fire Station, Building Committee, Economic Development, Housing, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, School Committee, Town Meeting, Council, and the Council on Aging if they ever get back together. We were covering them pre-COVID, and then they stopped meeting. We also do Memorial Day parade, concerts at the Pavilion, and 4th of July celebration, in which we also do the audio for the band. Tree lighting, candidates debates, dedications, Special Olympics, craft fairs, and we supply equipment and troubleshooting services to the Auburn High School television class for televised sporting events. Currently, we're helping the high school troubleshoot some issues with the auditorium. Since we use it for town meeting, they're making it a little bit more easy to get the things up on the screen and things like that. Just cleaning up the control room after like three different contractors up there. The rack looked like a pile of spaghetti, and trying to troubleshoot that, and you're pulling wires left and right. You're making more of a mess. So we just had to have a company come in here, track it all down, and clean it all up for us. Aside from that, we're still working on Camp Gleason. We've got the audio. We've got a contractor coming in. He's already run the cables for the audio. Just as soon as they finished painting the walls and the ceiling, we can install the speakers and the monitors. And then the only other thing that need to be done is the control room, so I can start wiring everything up.
Can you, maybe you have to remind me too, what is the plan for Camp Gleason?
It's to be used as additional meeting space. So right now, today I've got 3 government meetings going off at the same time. You know, a few hours leeway, but I've had days where I've had 3 meetings go off at exactly the same time. And I can only be at 2 places at the same time. 3. So we're just trying to get a little bit more, we're setting it up in such a way that it would be like a room like this. Everything's pre-wired. All you got to do is turn it on. Right now at the library, we have to set everything up. Housing Authority, you have to set everything up. Just want to make it easier on ourselves, easier on the committees. And hopefully Christian can also use it for recreational purposes, Recreation Department. The plan is probably not going to finish the kitchen off just yet. We're shooting for a May opening, and there'll be some other work that will need to be done outside, but it'll be operational for meetings. And that's the big one.
Questions for Chris?
I had 2 questions. The first is, I'm gonna hand you this. Will you just make sure that the budget that we have is actually correct? You said that you were level funding except for a change to legal and new equipment. I'm showing level funding from FY 2025 to FY 2026. So I just don't know if we have like an out-of-date version
I took 500 out of legal.
to bring it down
make it
to 500. Okay, we should,
And I put that into new equipment, because you really don't need,
It's not reflected on it.
yeah, we should amend our version to reflect that if possible then.
this is what I had submitted. 500,000, 500 in legal, brought it down. That's the count I've almost spent out.
Yeah.
We
shocked that you're able to do as much as you do with the new equipment budget that you have, so.
We actually ran into a new piece of equipment suggested to us by the incoming library director. It's called an OWL cam. And we're using it right now primarily with the with the Library Board of Trustees, because they want to do the remote meetings. It automatically does everything. It does a 360-degree view of the room. If you stand up, it will follow you. It does all the audio, and so we would never have known about it unless got that suggestion from an incoming employee. So,
And then my follow-up question was just, again, totally for the new members and not for myself. I know that the Auburn Cable Television has a enterprise fund. Can you just explain what portion of the budget, if anything, is coming out of there versus coming out of the tax levy?
nothing coming out of the tax levy that I understand.
That's what I like to hear.
It's all enterprise account. I'll know better where we stand after this year, because that'll be the first full year at 5%. The last check we got from Charter was based on 18 months at 5%, which was about $435,000. So I do know that our channels are on the Spectrum app. So, and I only know this because we lost 2 of our channels 2 weeks ago, and Spectrum was very quick. As soon as we figured out what was going on, Spectrum was very quick and got them back up. And their reason was that they were migrating our channels onto their app.
I'm confused. How is Spectrum an enterprise account?
It's,
Auburn Cable Television is an enterprise account. We get a payment from Spectrum.
That makes more sense.
yeah, we have to go through Spectrum for technical issues with our broadcasts, with our signal. It's pretty much just what's returned to the town. The transmitter in our head end at the high school belongs to Spectrum. And that's the only piece of equipment that they own in the high school, other than the fiber that goes to their head end room. Now, we paid for the fiber that is in town that connects all the town buildings and all the school buildings. And we contribute a portion of the maintenance fee as well. Mike contributes a portion and the school contributes a portion. Aside from that, all of the equipment is owned by the town of Auburn, and it's owned and maintained by us. We've never had to bring in, at least in 20 years, we haven't brought in a technician from Spectrum or Charter, Greater Media, whatever it's called. Whatever it's called that.
So if I understand this correctly, so this is why we only have one cable provider, is because we've...
No. Any other cable service provider can come in at any time during the contract and compete with Charter. It's non-exclusionary. Charter's the only one that has ever expressed an interest in coming to Auburn. During the last contract renegotiation, our council reached out to the councils of the other cable providers that could possibly come to Auburn, and none of them were interested.
Patrick, do you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to, it escapes me, I went back when I had these and looked at last year's budget, and we have new people. Can you remind me what the contingency, the 10 grand is for?
That's just pretty much just for the 3%, I think, that we use that. Occasionally, we go over on the contracted services and the part-time wages, because we're still, we add new meetings over the course of the year that weren't budgeted into the previous year, and also salary increases.
Okay. Aaron, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, and also the contingency for the enterprise fund is similar to the reserve fund for the general fund.
But this is in the same budget, that's why it was throwing me off.
Well, and it's for, yes, in this one it is within the budget. Like we did a transfer, I think it was last week, for some Code Red subscription money because we didn't get the renewal on the grant. So Chris had to ask for a transfer from the contingency into another line item. So that's just an example of what we would use it for.
And, if we don't use it, it just rolls into free cash.
I think the reason that it's in the budget is because it is an enterprise fund, so we have to actually allocate it from, like, the enterprise fund to a contingency account so that you can access it during the course of the year, right?
So we don't have to go to town meeting and,
How many employees are in your department?
I have 3 part-timers. Rich Hedden, Alice Brommels, and Norma Flash. I also have, I share a part-timer with Mike, John Horniak. So I supply half of your salary? 10%. Okay, 10% of Mike's salary, half of John's salary, and all of my salary.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Yeah, before we get to that, I just want to compliment you for, the amazing work you guys do, the professionalism of your staff, and how you guys have sort of, I've seen you do what you're doing with the Auburn kids, broadcasting those games now, and hopefully that'll be your future riches that'll come up and command some of these meetings.
Our next step is to get those live on cable. Right now, they're streaming to sports, to the Auburn High School sports YouTube page.
Yeah, but there's a variety of, media that they're able to access these meetings and sports and stuff, so that's great to see you adjusting with the times, I guess.
The students do a great job. I haven't had to really do a lot of troubleshooting. Most of the time, it's just, you're not pushing the on button long enough to turn the piece of equipment on. Just,
Just before, we've got the recommendation, but are we making an adjustment to what we have?
Sorry, I withdraw my previous motion. I move that we amend the budget as recommended by the town manager to change the legal line to $500 and to change the new equipment line to $10,500.
Second. We talked about it, I thought we voted, yeah, I just, we didn't vote.
Okay, so we're making that adjustment. Do we need a vote on the adjustment, so recommendation, and then recommend all?
Seconded, his recommendation seconded.
Moved and seconded.
Moving
to
second
amend
on the amendment, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we're still at the same amount, the FY26 community television total as recommended by the town manager, $196,534. Do we have a?
Motion to recommend the amended budget of
motion
$196,534.
on that as well?
Seconded.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thanks, Chris.
thank you very much.
Marino, information technology.
It's gone.
Oh, are we in a different thing here?
Way out towards the
Thank you for putting the numbers next to the, it makes it much easier. Okay, Mike, do you want to give us an overview of your department and this year's budget requests?
So I'm the IT director. As Chris said, we share a person between our departments. John Horniak is the assistant director. Between, the two of us, we do all the technology in the town, computers, networking, servers, phones, meetings, just about anything technology-wise. As far as the budget goes, for those of you that have been here before, you probably know, for people who are new, my budget is mostly consists of annual licenses, maintenance, support renewals for the various hardware, software, and services that we use. I have a few changes, new items that I've added this year, but for the most part, it's the same renewals that we use every year. As far as some of the new things that we have, we added a third firewall to give us a backup internet circuit, so the maintenance goes up because we have to pay for that extra maintenance. We have several new pieces of software licenses that we're using. one that enables us to keep our mobile, like laptops or devices that are out of our internal network, to keep those up to date. We've added some more licenses to that, and that's provided us some remote support, so we were able to decrease another item of remote support that we're paying for a different piece of software, so that was good. Publishing software is a new one this year. Microsoft has deprecated their publisher program, so the departments that use publisher software, we need something to give them so they can continue to make items like that. The other thing is our Microsoft licenses have increased because we've added more people. That's our email licensing, so that's increased a bit this year. And then, other than that, it's just the general increases to the licenses and maintenance agreements.
Questions? Andrew?
Just on the list of your, I assume, licenses and subscriptions, you had the endpoint protection at 38,313, and then written next to it, it's 13,481. Is that's because it's going to a 3-year, is that the 1-year price? I just wanted to clarify that.
What are you seeing for the endpoint protection?
It says, well, the actual amount is 38,313, and there's a handwritten note of 13,481.
Sorry, mine has the adjusted figure on it, so. The 38 was for the total of a 3-year license, but we're able to do a 3-year but pay it annually.
Okay.
So the 13 is what it'll cost us each
1/3.
year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick?
I'm just curious, is there a completely again, it's just clarifying, this is, you said for the town, so does the school have it completely separate? You're not involved with them at all?
The school and the police department.
Right, both have
separate.
their own, there are 2 other IT people.
Correct.
Thank you. And then my other question is, with the, because I was looking through the list, were you utilized, or did you have any input or tasks with OpenGov implementation?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, thank you.
And OpenGov is in here as well for renewal.
That's all. Thank you.
I guess my question is going to be, your initial request for the department was for hardware, software, maintenance was $340. Town manager was $316. What did you have to go?
That change was the endpoint protection. Originally, it was the full amount for the 3 years, but we were able to pay it off annually.
Yeah, and like I say it every year, I'm amazed that you do what you do with the resources you have and the amount you budget for the year for an entire community. But is there, I guess in this age of technology, I worry that we're, are there other things that we should be looking for to provide protections? I mean, especially as taxpayers, they're putting so much data into, when they pay their tax bills and dog licenses, and all our data is really going through the town. I think the residents wouldn't be opposed to, if there was additional protections out there, to put some costs to protect all their personal information that is run through the town.
Certainly. A lot of those, the permits and stuff, those are done through other software, so like OpenGov is one. So it actually doesn't come through us, like the payments or anything like that. The information's in on their system, not our systems. So a lot of that is handled with the software vendors that we use.
Anybody else with any more technical background than I do?
Well, I actually was going to question the 50,000. That's not even out for another 4 years relative to, you sort of asked the question when you said, are we current with all of it? I just found your CIP. I don't want to switch gears yet, but I just found the $50,000 out where it says server and infrastructure upgrades.
That's last year.
No, I know, I'm saying here, but then we don't do anything again for 5 more years, or a few more years. Yeah, 4 more years. So that's why I was just a little, no, I'm sorry, 5 more years. For 30, it's 40,000. So it's 25 here, and then we go up another 5,000, but not for 5 more years. So I just found that.
That's a replacement cycle, so I have our systems on a 5-year replacement cycle. So our computers, I have a third coming this fiscal year, '26, then the next third the year after, the third the year after that, then our servers, and then our laptops, and then it'll start over again on a cycle.
And you're comfortable with the amounts that are in that budget for those projections?
For now, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Well, because I already noticed you changed the 30 to 40, and that's for '27.
Yeah.
That's in your backup. So that's why I was sort of questioning the others.
That was, in '27, we have an item for our SAN replacement, which is our big storage server. And I had reached out to some vendors to get quotes on replacements, and that was reflecting the quotes for the new replacement.
Thank you.
And I think we brought this up before on servers. Is there a point where we'll transition to a cloud-based server system as opposed to having?
Possible, it's pricey. So if we can do it in-house for less cost, I think that's a better idea, but if we need to push stuff to the software side, cloud side, it's something that we might eventually have to do. But for now, to keep costs down a lot, I'm fine with doing it in-house.
My last question, which I would not have had any idea about until last week when I started a new position with the state, is do we take advantage of the statewide contracts for the purchases of software and hardware?
Yes.
Karen, that may be a general question. Are all of our purchases required to go through statewide purchasing contracts and things of that nature?
Well, they're not required, but if there's a certain dollar amount, then we do have to get the quotes. And we'll use some of the state contracts also.
I just have the scary question, because there are so many ransomware attacks, and I'm just curious about how the backup system works, so that, when somebody attacks you today, somehow you grab something from a week ago, hopefully, when it wasn't there, or however that works.
We have backups that run nightly. We have 2 locations and a cloud location. So in theory, if one location gets hit, we still have a secondary location. And if both of those get hit, we do have a cloud backup that we can utilize. We have, it's called immutable storage, which means it can't be touched for a certain amount of time. So even if ransomware or some type of virus or something gets into the system, it can't touch that data. It's like locked, it's frozen. So we do have that as a other alternative. So we work with a couple different vendors for backups just to have redundancy like that.
I guess my question, because it's still going on, and I'm wondering how is it still going on? Because it seems to be, because I'm sure, you've got a lot of hats to wear, and I'm just curious as to the exposure of different towns, because everybody's going through the same thing.
Yeah, one of the things that we do utilize, it's not on here because it's not a budgetary item, but the state has a grant that they allow towns to apply for cybersecurity training, and we utilize that. We actually just sent ours out today, the first part. We've been doing that for 5 years now, I believe. So that does help training employees on how to identify some of these attacks.
Patrick, you did thank you for reminding me about the CIP. I don't think any of the ones we covered previously had been checked, but thank you. So, but this one, I know you got my back. Even though you stole my line about, and on behalf of our newest members,
You gotta do it.
my secret.
You gotta stick together, Ken. All right.
Okay, so we're covered on the CIP. There's no other questions. That $25,000 for computer replacement for this year, and that's, okay.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Motion to recommend in a second for the information technology budget, for the town manager's recommendation for $316,000. 141?
Second line.
Oh, I'm sorry, I went down, so $409,434. Thank you. See, that's why you got my back. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How would you like to, I don't want to, if you've got a presentation laid out, do you want to go department, all your sub-departments as we go? Do you want to do one overall? Whatever you're prepared for, we're willing to accommodate.
Awesome. If it's okay with the board, I'd like to go, if we can go by each division, and I can give you kind of an update for each division. Does that work for you?
That works.
Okay, great. Thank you. So good evening. I'm Darlene Coyle. I'm the Director of Development and Inspectional Services, and also the Health Director here in town. I am presenting for DDIS, as we call it, and we have overall in the department, it's a pretty large department, so we have 12 full-time employees. We have 2 part-time employees, 2 on-call for animal control, and then we have 6 town inspectors and nursing contractor. So overall, the department has quite a large group. Each division operates independently, but we coordinate together, and it's a very easy to share information because physically we're close in proximity, but over the past several years, we've worked hard to try to interlock our relationships with one another. So if we can start, the first division that you have before you is the Public Health Division. So, hello?
Just Chris.
Sorry. So for the Public Health Division, we have 2 full-time staff and myself. I provide support to the Board of Health, but also within the whole department. So 2 staff members and a clerk. We're responsible for environmental health inspections and public health safety. We issued about 550 permits in the past year, and of those 550, we had about 325 food permits. We do routine and complaint inspections for food establishments. We have just about 100 brick and mortar establishments, but we have a fluctuating number for temporary food, and that has become pretty popular over the past several years with the events that we are offering in town, and we're encouraging more and more people to come to town with their food trucks. So that's worked out very well. We do housing inspections for complaints and for concerns of the not meeting the state sanitary code for minimum compliance. We have tobacco control. We have some grant dollars that come for that. So we have some tobacco-specific inspectors that come to town to do compliance inspections, and education for our retailers. We do inspections for camps, beaches, pools, tanning facilities, body art. We actually issued a beaver permit this year. We do nuisance complaints. Yes, a beaver permit, emergency beaver permit. So we were contacted by the Auburn Water District for a concern for a busy beaver, it really is a term, that was building up a dam that was threatening their water supply area. So we worked with the water department and the surrounding areas to identify where the area was, and then normally these emergency permits, they're pretty strict on what criteria you can issue a permit on. And we were able to work with the water department, and we actually didn't have to issue the permit. We worked together to be able to take down the dam slowly to alleviate the flooding area, and didn't actually have to issue a permit to euthanize. So it was a good outcome. Nuisance complaints, anything from odor, air, trash, vacant properties. We do a lot of different types of complaints. A lot of times, people will call the office when they're not quite sure who to call, and we'll triage it within the department. We also do inspections for septic systems and private wells. The Board of Health also is responsible for communicable disease and prevention. We work with a public health nurse that works a limited amount of hours, and she monitors any communicable disease. We do education and outreach. We are a department that is very involved with emergency preparedness and drills, and making sure that we have preparedness and readiness for our food establishments, for if we had to actually set up an emergency dispensing site or emergency shelter. If you remember several years ago when we had the ice storm and there were massive power outages, the boards of health are actually work closely with the emergency management team to set that up. We have to meet state and regional requirements for public health excellent grants, and our staff has right now, the state is very strong on getting our staff trained in all different areas. So it's a lot of online training and some training out in the field. We have community partnerships to promote wellness for families. This past year was very challenging for many families that are in like literally critical need. So needing like food, heat, just like basic needs. So our department is a 24-hour response for that, and I'm proud of that. All of our department staff take that very serious. Some significant change in our department. We did have some staffing challenges, as I may have mentioned, and I'm proud to say that we have filled a clerk's position in the past month. And they're just doing great. I would also just like to take a moment. Danielle provided support in our department over the past year, and she really was a huge help to keep us afloat. So thank you, Danielle. And the Board of Health finally provides professional support to the actual board members in the regulatory board. So that's just like a little bit about our department. The budget that you have before you is pretty much level funded. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding any of the line items.
Any other questions while we're on this one? I think we'll just save an overall vote for the whole DDIS at the end, but if you have, I'd rather questions be based on the, individual presentations, I guess.
Not any concern, I'm just curious, community services, looks like it's either a new line or a line that we're filling again.
Yes, yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. Yes, we did add this in this year because we are noticing we're responding more and more to emergency needs, and sometimes it's a matter of having to purchase some items that's going to be helpful in our work.
Additional questions? If not, we'll move on to the next planning division.
Yes, planning. So our planning division is extremely busy with all different, just all sorts of types of questions. I'm happy to report that the town planner, Adam Menard, is he's present here tonight, and he has been promoted to an assistant DDIS director in the recent month or so, and I'm really happy to have him on board. Adam has been a longtime employee in the department. He has done all sorts of plans, and the housing production plan is, housing production and the hazard mitigation plan, these are actually newly updated plans. The housing production plan, I believe, is good for, is it 5 years? 7, okay. That is going to help us really identify housing needs and where it's appropriate to place housing within the town. That has a lot of information in that plan, and that gets certified by the state. The hazard mitigation plan, like, literally is brand new. It just got accepted at the select board meeting, actually earlier this week. In this hazard mitigation plan is kind of like an all hazards, like weather-related plan. So if we had flooding or power outages, those sort of things, this kind of plan helps the departments figure out where the need to respond to would be. And that hazard mitigation plan is good for 5 years. That's the one for 5. So there's a lot that goes into these plans. They're often like year-long meetings of all town departments. So there's strict requirements from the state, and there's a lot to put those plans together. They're not the most exciting plans, but they are, they allow the town to be prepared to get state certification, and then that also opens doors for grant money. In the past year, there were 17 applications to the planning board. I think he had some really late meetings. There's a lot that happens at the planning board meetings, and Adam does provide professional support at those meetings, so he's at all of those meetings. Research of various subject matter. He works closely with the town clerk on all sorts of deadlines, because a lot of what we do in our department, and specifically for planning and posting of meetings, oversight of minutes. It's a lot of administrative work that has to be looked at, and so Adam is very good at doing that. And then finally, 40B management. In the past, in the past year plus, we've had several new 40B projects come to town, and that's quite heavy on the whole department in providing support for that. I don't know if you're aware, but we had a public meeting for one of the most recent applications, and we had quite a big response. We had about over 65 people here. Those people call the office, they email, they come in, and we need to have people to be able to answer questions. So that is a role that Adam takes on, and I think going forward, it's only going to get busier. So that tells you like a little bit about planning. The budget that you have before you, there's a change in the salary to reflect his additional role, and you can see that it is balanced between tax levy and muni aggregation. He also does provide a backup to the municipal aggregation duties as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Patrick?
Just to connect the two, when you spoke a few minutes ago about the public health, you mentioned the emergency situation a couple of years ago with the ice.
Yes.
And then when you mentioned that the nurse was working and we have an emergency management plan in town, I believe, if I heard you correctly. Did you say that?
So we absolutely provide support for when we have to open the shelter.
Well,
and
where I was going with that, and we're heading in the same direction,
Okay.
is Adam, with the other management reports that he's providing and doing, is he also producing an Auburn emergency management plan every 5 years as well?
So that
Is that a
is the...
different role, a
the-
different position?
That is a different role. So we have an emergency management director, who we are fortunate is a town resident, and he's Eric Otterson. Mr. Otterson was a member of the fire department for many years, and he is also my Board of Health chair, and has been the chair for quite some time. He's the emergency management director, and he oversees the SEMP plan. So it's the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. Sorry, I just want to make sure I get the acronyms correct. So that SEMP plan is a collection of all of the emergency response plans that, for all different scenarios.
You anticipated my question. I think where I was going, but you've answered it, is I was going to ask if with Adam stepping up in his role now, if that's, if he'll work directly with all of that, given his background and the other reports he's responsible for.
So,
Adam's taking the mic.
oh,
I
I'm
can
sorry.
provide some
I'm so
clarity if
sorry.
you want. So the hazard mitigation plan is to prepare the town before a hazard happens. The SEMP plan is to react to a disaster. So that's the difference. I'm just involved with the hazard mitigation plan, preparing for things to happen.
Very good.
But there is, thank you so much, Adam, but there is a group of emergency department heads that meet on a regular, I'm going to say regular, several times a year, so including police, fire, CERT, health, I'm sorry, I'm probably forgetting a whole bunch of people.
No,
but-
you're answering it well. No, I really appreciate it, because I was taking the budget into consideration, your explanation, and these various plans that all have to work together, and you did a really, really concise job at just picking the key players and how they're connected, which is sort of where I was going to head, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wanted to get you while you were in between these two, because you were listing off a series of plans, and I felt if I waited to ask the question, it might get lost in translation.
Thank you,
Great.
I appreciate
Thanks.
asking the question.
Additional questions relative to the planning?
This is not a financial question, but I assume the hazardous mitigation plan and the housing production plan are both online?
I believe so, yeah.
And secondarily, in the ideal world, would the housing production plan block the need for 40B? No.
Have Adam answer that.
Having a certified housing plan helps, but until the town hits at 10% of the subsidized housing, we still can get 40B. So it's a percentage of housing that we need also.
So it's not 10% new housing, it has to be 10% affordable housing? Is that basically the distinction?
Correct.
Where are we currently? Do we know?
5.24%.
So if we do hit 10, then the protection plan would,
Then with then the 10% along with the housing production plan should put us in safe harbor, and we won't have to be forced to review 40. We can still accept them if we chose to, but we wouldn't be forced into it like we are now.
Additional questions?
what is the CMRPC line item?
Oh, sure, yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, we should be able to put it in there, but you do have to use acronyms sometimes. So it's the Central Mass Regional Planning Committee, and that committee is basically like a regional resource. So they provide support to municipalities. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask, how many municipalities?
The city of Worcester and 39 surrounding communities.
And so they provide support to us, and we get these, we get all sorts of benefits of it. So they have regional staff. Actually, I was on a meeting just a little while ago with one of the key people there. So they help coordinate regional efforts to help municipalities lean on each other. Sometimes we have like a regional housing coordinator that will help with some of these plans that Adam has put together. They're able to look and see, like, is there another municipality that maybe has something that we don't have that we could use? So, for example, we have a town meeting warrant that's coming up that I think is about $17,000 and change. And so that will get us a certain amount of hours per week. And so we have some monthly support, technical support, and that person will be like with like 4 or 5 other towns. So, you know, we all put like a little bit in. It's not somebody we need full-time, but we need them for certain tasks. Thank you.
Additional questions on planning? Okay. Before we lose anybody, I just want to thank you that they have both your 2 new assistant directors. Congratulations, and thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
We'll move on to economic development, and I see you've got Brooke is also online. If you
Oh,
need
wonderful. Yeah.
to phone a friend, she's
Thank you, Brooke. Within our economic development, so this budget has economic development and energy management. Brooke wears 2 hats and does it very gracefully. She spends a lot of time actually kind of prioritizing. So because they're separate roles and responsibilities, sometimes she spends, 60% of her time with economic development, sometimes it's 40%, and then it may ebb and flow back and forth. So economic development is a really important area of the town, and she coordinates the development coordination group. We call like our DCG group. So that's a collection of the departments. That it's an informal group when somebody is interested in proposing like a new business or coming to town and is thinking like, hey, I have this existing business, but I wanted to add like something else to it because it's become really popular. We try to help people figure out what that process looks like. Most of the time, they're going to be coming through our department, whether they need a permit from the building department or a zoning interpretation request. Brooke will kind of listen to them and then kind of direct them within the department. If it's like somebody that wants to open like a new ice cream place, they'll direct them over to our health staff. If they are going to have seats at this ice cream place, we direct them over to the town manager's office for a common vic. So it's kind of like almost like a steering of business. The economic development also oversees the master plan, along with planning and Mr. Menard. Economic development plan in the rapid recovery plans. They do a lot of looking for grants and looking for ways to get grant dollars that will help improve the area for businesses. Like during, I think it was COVID, Brooke, help me if I'm not saying this correctly. During COVID, there was some dollars that were available for businesses if they wanted to apply for them to help kind of support during COVID when business kind of went down. Brooke, am I missing something on that?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I actually wasn't with the town during COVID, but I do believe that was the case. The Rapid Recovery Grant was a state grant program to develop a plan to move forward post-COVID with economic development activities and business activity.
Thank you so much. One other grant that is really nice that she's working on that you actually see when you leave here is the wayfinding signs. So in some of the fancy flags that are going down the center of town, Brooke has taken a lot of time to pick out some really nice seasonal flags that you'd put up. So if it looks like a little fancier, that's because of our economic development coordinator. They also have a seat at the table for the Chamber of Commerce, and Brooke is involved in a lot of subcommittees to promote events in town, and then also to help, like, if the collection of business people at those meetings have questions, she's right there, and she can say, oh, okay, yeah, that's not, that's not hard, you can come to the town for this, and she can direct them. She handles the web and social media, and she tries to make sure she's taking note of any vacant properties, any large parcels, and putting those, connecting to the available areas that businesses might be interested in. Economic development, she provides professional support at those meetings for that group. So that's like a little bit about what she does. Brooke, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you did a good job covering it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, she also does the tax classification. She helps support businesses towards the single tax rate.
Questions on this one?
She's got really big shoulders based on what you just told us, but from a fiscal standpoint, we've got an amount of vacant property and buildings in town. Is she playing a role? And I can ask her, I didn't realize she was on the screen behind you, but is she playing a role in trying to, and I'm just bringing up an example, we're digging a hole in front of Shaw's to put up a new bank, along with the 7 banks that are already there, which is a moot point at this point, because I can't believe yet a new bank is coming into Auburn. But we've also got areas that are eyesores, have been eyesores for decades, and I'm curious if it's in her role, if not the immediate future, but down the road soon, to start to make use of trying to get some of these vacant buildings that we see, storefronts along Southbridge Street and so forth, empty.
Absolutely. So that is, that's a need that we recognize, and I think that a lot has happened, since COVID, and it kind of exacerbated a lot of conditions within every division that we have in DDIS. And that is something that Brooke spends a lot of time with. And Brooke, do you want to offer anything in this area?
Sure. So there are a few vacant properties in town that I'm aware of. I am aware of the bank as well going in front of Shaw's. I've been working with the town planner, Adam Menard, to review the zoning, because that is something that I've heard from the business community and just residents in general about the lack of diversity of businesses. So that is something that we're looking into. There's an upcoming grant round for FY26 with the state. It's called the Community One Stop Grant, but it's kind of like an overarching, I'm not sure what to call it. It's multiple grant programs that fall under this Community One Stop Grant program that will hopefully help with different development activities.
I just think while I have our new economic person on the screen, I just want to mention, not only as a member of the Finance Committee, but where we watch our dollars flow in and out of the city, I think that, to really make use of what we have, Auburn is not that big. So when I see a lot of vacant property and I see us going after, and no insult to Packagug, I think it's a beautiful space. We've done a lot with it, but we also did it at Letting Eddie's Pond, and there was a lot of people that felt that we weren't using the resources we already had, and that yet we went and took a whole area and added a whole new park. And so I'm just concerned that we had a parking lot that was being utilized, and instead of going after one of the other buildings, and to her point that she's working with other people, I just think as an economic developer, I'd like to offer that it's great to bring, recurring revenue and businesses to offset all of that, but let's try to be cognizant of the space we're using and what we're forgoing. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's also like part of when she is working with the economic development group, They meet on a regular basis, and I think they talk about these same issues.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on this one, so I've been on the committee long enough to know when this position came into being, and it came into being because town leadership, town administration didn't have the resources, the time to spend on, to going to Chamber of Commerce meetings and things of that nature. So they saw the need for this position to be created. I know the interim town manager, we've had conversations relative to, she, I think, has one of her priorities is to breathe some life into some of these commercial properties, to diverse, like I think Brooke just mentioned, diversify. And you hear that, there are no locally owned restaurants. That's a common sort of theme out there. But I know there was a point that I think the economic development coordinator was pretty much a full-time position, and then we had to, over the years, sort of consolidate and tighten things up, and due to vacancies, and this is certainly not the year to separate it, because it's a tight year. But I certainly think that this is a position that should be a full-time position. The travel, there should be a travel line. This person should be traveling to regional, business conferences to advertise this town and say, look, we've got a great town. We are located, in a perfect location for so much. That's where I would envision this type of position to be out there, reeling in businesses from, near and far. I think Brooke does a great job. She's staying locally. She's, helping the businesses that are currently here, but I want to see that position eventually get out there and pull in, so we have a real strong foundational base for taxes and for stuff for people in the community to go to, the businesses, that diverse group of commercial businesses. And we've got, the mall, it remains an unknown, a huge unknown to people. We don't know which direction that is going, and Simon Properties doesn't seem to be sharing what their plans are, and I feel like that could be a big hole in our commercial base in the near future. But no, compliments to Brooke. It's just, that was my 2 cents relative to.
Well, yeah, and to add to that, since you opened the door, I was sitting here, and one of the questions I wrote, and you started to elaborate on some of them, were what resources are really available to Brooke. So when I said she had big shoulders, and her shoulders are huge for what she's taking on, and I commend her, and while I have a moment, I'll congratulate her as well on her new opportunity. But this can be she can accomplish a lot if she's got all the right resources. And I know this isn't the year, like he said, to talk about it, but I would, for the future of Auburn and to protect all of the integrity we've had as a community over the decades, I definitely think that this is something that, is going to be closely watched. But, to your point, $200 for a travel line, gas, that's four full tanks of gas.
So thank you very much for the support, because we definitely appreciate it, and I know this is something that we want to give Brooke the resources to be able to spend more time on economic development. It has been mentioned by every board that we have been before, and the interim town manager, Ms. Vecchio, has been very supportive of this, and so that kind of, I guess, leans into the energy management. This is one budget. However, on the flip side, for her other hat, the energy management, we have applied for a grant for a full-time energy manager. And then that would alleviate the second hat that she wears. So we're hoping to, literally any time hearing from the state, if we're able to get grant dollars, that would be a full-time position for, I believe it's 3 years, plus benefits. And then Brooke obviously would have to train that person and get them up to speed, but that would allow her to be able to now dive into economic development, which I know she loves. So we're trying to get that switch, and we're trying to give her the resources that she can utilize in order to spend more time on it.
Sure, and to that point, to my closing thought, is that, we've had a couple of long-range planning meetings and so forth over the years, and I know when I first saw the ground break over in front of Bank of America and Shaw's, my first thought was mixed use. I thought, oh, this is cool. We've got a really premium spot of a major intersection along that whole line where we might be able to put something in that might have a series of condos or something above it and then some retail space below. And I didn't realize it was going to be one entity, and it just sort of blew me away. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we had just, or at least I mentioned it at one of the previous meetings, about basically people can sit on land indefinitely if they want to. And there's no disincentive by the town. I don't know if legally, if we can, tax people more for not using their land, like the Yankee Drummer site, right? I mean, that's been sitting there for 15 years maybe since they've knocked that down. I mean, it's been a long time.
And that is a site, I can tell you that we do have conversations in our office about, and I know Brooke and myself have reached out for various items. I know it's a large area, it can be a dumping ground. It's something, we want something to go there, and the building gets broken into because it's vacant. So it is an area that we both are aware and trying to get response from the owner. Obviously, we want to work with property owners, but when they're not, taking care of their responsibilities, it maybe reflects not great on the town.
If they don't want to develop it, which is generally a carrot, maybe we need to give them a stick. Let it go to somebody that'll do something with it, because they will sit on it for 50 years or 100 years, they don't care, especially if it's a corporation. And we're not taxing them enough to make them feel any pain. So they're just going to settle. I mean, then the same thing with the tax rate. I mean, the split tax rate, Worcester's doing okay, Marlboro's doing okay. Lots of cities, a lot of towns and places are doing okay with the split tax rate. The problem isn't the split tax rate. The problem is if the rents are too high, businesses will fail. And if the landlords are just sitting on the land, there's nowhere to develop because everything's already owned. Business development is a great idea, but at some point, businesses have to step up and become part of the community. They can't just, they can't just sit on it. Because especially in a town like us, because we have no land.
I appreciate your comments, and it is something that, Brooke and I will, talk about again and see what the options are. I know this is an important area for everybody. It reflects on all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just close out this one. Brooke, not to put any more weight on your shoulders, but I do think your position is probably one of the, if not the most important position in this large binder we have full of budgets and numbers, because your success really infuses, through the business and commercial development and support of the existing businesses and bringing in new businesses. It's a huge thing, but it's critically important, and I don't think we can really minimize in any way, shape, or form that position. That's my opinion. So.
Thank you.
Anything else on planning, or economic development and energy management? We can move on to building and code enforcement. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you very much, Brooke.
Thank you.
So for building and code, we have had a really busy year in this division. So in the past year, the building division issued over 2,000 permits, so 2,100 permits, including residential, commercial. We have the zoning interpretation request. Those are those requests if somebody wants to do something with their property. They send in a written request, and our building commissioner takes a look at that and provides advisement. We have gas, wiring, plumbing, weights and measures, all of those town inspectors work within the building division. We had a major software transition, so we transitioned to OpenGov, so an online permitting system. We had, during that period, we actually had staffing change. So we had a long-time employee leave during literally the switchover. So there was like a little bit of a learning curve, but I'm proud to say that we were able to promote from within. So our building commissioner has been a longtime employee, and he took on the task. Really, he's just fearless when taking on new challenges. So we're still working out the kinks in the system, but we are making progress, and one of the goals this year is to get the system working to the best of what it can offer, because we think that this OpenGov software can offer more than what we had before and make it a lot easier. It's already easier within the department. So the previous software, we weren't able to really connect well. And this new software, OpenGov, we are using it, and it helps keep lines of communication open within our division. So it has like a little workflow. You can provide comments, and then it goes to the next person, and the next person gets like a little reminder, hey, can you review this? So we're working through that. We're hoping to be able to add in a new offering that we haven't had online before, so it's going to be a life safety inspection. So it'll, instead of going out, doing the inspection and asking for all these reports, it will allow the businesses that require life safety inspections to be able to upload all their reports and get all of their, check the emergency lights and get your fire suppression system checked, and all these things will be able to load in, so that when the inspector goes out to do these inspections, now it's like, oh, okay, I see you have this, this, and this. Oh, okay, you're just missing this one thing. So it should hopefully save time for the inspector and make it more efficient for everybody. So that's our goal this year. It's a big goal with everything else, but we think it's ultimately going to make it a little bit easier. We also welcomed a brand-new building inspector hired in the past month, and he's doing great. He's excited to be in the position. He's never worked in municipal government before, and he is really really soaking it up. So we have a lot of new changes in the department, but it's really nice. And he's already trying to work towards some of the required state trainings. The state has certain trainings that they require for inspectors and commissioners. So our staff are all working through those trainings. And then also within building, there's also zoning. The building commissioner also issues zoning determinations as well, and provides professional support at the zoning board of appeals meetings. So the budget that you have is, there's really no big changes here. And then the commissioner's salary is balanced between tax levy and municipal aggregation. He provides support for various energy-type activities. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll ask one. So for all the individual inspectors, your electrical inspectors, your
Yes.
plumbing inspectors, where is that reflected?
Oh, great question. So we are able to pay the inspectors through a revolving account. So the fees, so they apply through the online system. So if you're applying for an electrical permit, you're going to, you've got to have the licensed electrician has to initially sign up, and they're a vendor, so they put in their state license, their insurance, so they get set up as a actual vendor in the system, and then say you're gonna pull a electrical permit for, say, 1 Main Street. You can put in the permit, it goes in, they make contact with the electrical inspector. Once the work is done, they come out, do the inspection, they sign off electronically in the system, and the permit is paid for online. It goes into our online system, and then we work with Karen's finance team for the treasurer-collector. I think you heard maybe in a recent, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, they have the staff down there separates out the payments, and then we balance out the payments of what we took in, and then we pay the inspectors monthly, and it's a balance of percentage. So the town keeps a
The software
percentage.
doesn't split the fee and we just get our part, we have to then,
I'm sorry?
the software doesn't split the fee?
It does not. So we do that once a month. But that's something that we are also looking for efficiencies with payroll. Amy Contois is the also assistant director, and she's quite talented on online and looking at OpenGov and trying to figure out some efficiencies. So we're trying to figure some ways to do things a little bit easier.
If there's, another question I had, in past years, we had issues with personnel out of your division leaving to go to other communities. Are we in a good place right now?
So this past year?
Better?
This past year, it was challenging. But I feel like we are heading in the right direction. We've made some adjustments, and we're hoping to be able to offer some stability in the department.
I'm going to use, for newer members, line. Can you just explain what some of those challenges were, and relative to we invest a good amount of money into certifications and in personnel and get them all trained up, and then other communities were basically coming in and poaching from Auburn? Can you just sort of highlight some of that?
Sure, yeah. So we are trying to, so we have made some salary adjustments. That definitely has happened within the past year, and that was through the support of town management. And that honestly has made a big difference, so that we can try to attract a pool of candidates. And I have to say, for building officials, this is something that, I mean, this is not an easy role to fill, because the state has certain requirements. Even to be in this role, they have certain amount of time to get their certifications before the state will say you have somebody that is not qualified. So we're very fortunate to be able to, as I mentioned, our building commissioner already has all the minimum, and he's working towards the final qualifications for that. Our brand-new inspector, he has already been approved to, you have to be approved to take the tests. So even that's a process. And we hired him, and he already had that. So that was like very attractive for us, because he came in and he wants to train. So he had a really strong base in residential experience, but not so strong on commercial. So that's where Gary, who has just like 40 years of experience in, ran his own business, and so he knows the commercial side. So it's kind of like a really good fit, because they both offer something to each other, and it helps strengthen the department. So salary adjustment has been made, and we also have in this education for $1,700. We've gone up like a little bit. We're hoping to be able to, take care of those tests, the required tests. Does that answer?
It does, and I think it's just a point relative to, you'll hear from people, why are ex-employees of the town making a certain amount of money? Well, if we don't invest in these employees, we're going to pay all kinds of monies to get them certified and get them trained and learn the systems, and they do a great job, and then just by human nature, a community close by is offering more money or better benefits, we're going to lose them. So it is that balance, and I think your department and others have done a great job of balancing it. It's just a point relative to, as we budget, we've got to provide the support.
Honestly, we appreciate your support because we don't, obviously, I don't want to lose anybody. Anybody else, it was a tough year, and really to try to support people where they're at. Sometimes different employees, training might be really important. So spending time to let people get professional development balanced out with, if they need, some personal time to, take a class or something like that, that's where we can work with employees.
So the state has a certain set of requirements for the employee, but they don't actually create any kind of, what do you call it on the unions, fair market wages, so that we're not competing against other towns? They don't do anything like that.
I'm not familiar with that. Like our employees, other than the clerks are in the GEU union, but the employees, the bylaw employees are not union. But I think really it's just trying to keep up with salaries, and that's, honestly, you're in a great position because you get to see everybody's budget. So, we want to try to be fair so that people aren't leaving here and going somewhere else.
But I'm not questioning, your pressures are your pressures. I mean, I'm more just asking a bigger question about how the system works. One of the things that we've seen a couple of times, which I've always thought should be in the budget initially, which is that you hire somebody, or they're in a position, and then we're paying to train them, and then we give them a raise because they were trained, or meet the certification that they didn't have when they came into the job. And I don't know if this is a finance question or a CFO question, but it seems to me that should be in the budget, because the budget is about predicting. So if you're hiring somebody who's basically unqualified, and you're paying them X amount, the budget should either be with the expectation that they're going to be qualified and get paid X amount, or it's going to be X amount plus Y, but it should still be in the budget, whichever the sequence is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're talking about. So as people get certifications, they get almost like a stipend, like a bump. I actually, I think that is fair. It allows us to, give incentive for people to get trainings. But I think that makes it challenging. I think it makes it challenging for budgeting, just because if you're putting money in the budget, it's always very lean. So, we certainly would support, any ways to give incentive for people, because ultimately, if they are getting certifications, I have several people training right now. If they're able to get certifications and move towards being more experienced, it does make them more valuable.
For Karen, this is sort of the purpose of the salary reserve account, right? Like, essentially, it's there as a I don't want to say a rainy day fund, but to be able to cover salary issues throughout the course of the year, right?
Correct, but it's generally there to cover the, like changes that do happen, like the 1% for the non-union. If it's available, then yes, that can be, but again, we'd have to continue to put it in the budget annually. And there are some certifications that that are in the budget. I know the assessor gets one, the treasurer collector when they get certified, so there are certain ones that are already in the budget.
I guess I would ask a similar vein of questions, that it's more of an HR thing. And my background with the public safety end, a lot of times, public safety agencies, when they invest to send somebody to an academy, whether it's a police or a fire academy, will enter into some sort of contract, because there is a large investment of time, money for academy, equipment. Have we ever considered, and again, I don't think we're losing people in the first year. I don't think they're grabbing their certifications and running. I don't think that's the case. But just to have a commitment beyond, the potential of losing them immediately after they've attained a certification, that's that golden ticket in their area of expertise.
I'm not sure that it's done here. I have seen it in another community where there will be an agreement, with X number of years. If you leave, you may have to pay back the full amount or a certain percentage of the amount that they expect you to stay for a certain period of time if we help to pay for it.
Just a consideration.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of the same thing, that if you're going to train them and then give them a raise, or they're coming in unqualified and you're training them to be qualified, like, does that demand, like it's a sort of a double negative for the town, because you're paying them more than they're technically worth, and then you're paying to train them, and you're paying them for knowing what you taught them. So, and part of I wasn't here in 2008, but, we know there's a storm coming. And at some point, in 2008, I knew people that, people were taking pay cuts, they were reducing their hours. I mean, it seems to me that that's all going to land somewhere, somehow. And I don't know how the town got through it last time, but it's not going to be pretty. And, just like you're helping people, because people need help. I mean, that number's going to things are going to get wild, I'm pretty sure, around here. And the assumption that we could just keep growing 2% a year, I don't think those days are here anymore. I really don't. Eggs are going to go up 6% or 50%. But wages, everybody's just going to have to figure out to charge less so we're not killing each other. Because that's really what it comes down to.
If I could, I know that you've said it a couple of times. I don't think the town would hire someone who's unqualified. It would just need someone who would just need maybe additional training on, for municipal purposes, or maybe on software or something like that. So I just kind of wanted to, just to clarify that.
Everybody's capable of
Yeah.
plenty more if you get the education or the training or the nurturing. But that's also true whether or not you pay them more, too.
They'd have to have
That's
the
the
background in whatever topic they're being hired for. Yeah,
Right, but my point is if they've come in and accepted the position at X, then that's the pay, so they're at X. One of the things that, I don't want to get into editorialing, but, there's a huge gap in the outside world between the owners and the workers. And so when the town says, well, this is what managers are making in the outside world, those numbers are more inflated than they should be generically, because the owners are not taking care of their employees. And so I think we have to be careful about, Shrewsbury pays more than Auburn. And so we have to pay what Shrewsbury pays. But we're not Shrewsbury. That's, I don't want to editorialize, but I'm just saying that there are pressures that are here, and they're going to just get worse at some point, and we should be cognizant of them.
I appreciate your input. I mean, you're definitely paying attention to, what's happening. There is, I can tell you, municipal government, it's very difficult to get qualified people right now, because there are people that are just chasing money. And it's, I mean, at least in my experience, it's not always about just money. You have to have,
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's not just difficult to get them, but it's difficult to retain them.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's difficult to just, sustain a normal year of business. And I know as a committee member, I've seen it, for many years where the budget just becomes, you don't want to be narrow-minded when you go through the budget process because it serves you no positive function. And again, I agree with you, at some point, I've seen communities level fund their budgets, and Auburn has done that in the past. And as you can see, some of the budgets we have before us today, even though inflation might be at 2, or it might be at 2.8 right now in general, it can be at 2.5, but some of these increases are less than even the inflation. They're at 1.2 and 1.7, so, we're doing our best to, keep salaries and things in check. And it's hard to compete. I could see how you could mention something like Shrewsbury. There are times when you can go to like communities and you can be competitive. But then there are other times where you're not dealing with it as a municipality, but you're dealing with it as an industry or a skill set such as fire or police or education. It's a little tougher because education is global, it's national, it's not municipal. So there's a lot of different variables that speculate whether or not somebody can compete. And to the point that the chair made earlier, it serves us no purpose to put someone on. So let's just take a number and throw it out there, somebody with a $60,000 salary. It could take us $25,000 to $30,000, if not more, to get them up to speed in 5 months. Now, we've invested over 50% of their salary into the first couple of months of having them, and as soon as they get that, they go to the bargaining table somewhere else. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Right.
So,
And that's what Kevin was saying, that
Right.
if we're going to do the training, if we're going to make a commitment to you, you should logically be making a commitment to us.
but it's a difficult balance. There are employees to your point that it doesn't matter what you do for them, they're gonna rein it in and they're gonna jump at the next opportunity because the only thing they care about. And to my point, when Ed Kastanovich was leaving, we were very blessed. I mean, he was an extremely talented individual in finance. He could have gone anywhere and written off his ticket, but he chose a dedication and a role to stay committed to a community, and it was a dual benefit. And as I mentioned when we were thanking him, that's a rare instance today. It's not something you see a lot of. So as a community, we get it from different angles, so it's not an easy thing to balance. And I
It's not
see your
easy to
point.
change the culture.
At some point, right, it doesn't. The culture has to change a little, and I think it's a work in progress. But to your point, too, there are going to be maybe some years where we're going to have to level fund, because it is getting tight.
I think it's all good commentary. I know we're early in the budget season, but I think this is all stuff that sort of, some of these discussions sort of go across, multiple budgets, so I think it's important to say. I will say, I did have some work done at our house this year, and we had a contractor who had never done business in the town of Auburn before, and she was extremely complimentary of all your staff and office and the procedure, and she made a point of, she wouldn't hesitate to do business in Auburn again, so.
Thank you so much.
Whatever you're doing behind the scenes, they're doing a great job.
Yay.
I'll say I had Mike do some work at my old house, and he was great, so.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much.
If we're ready, we'll move on to Conservation Commission?
Conservation. So conservation, we have, so conservation has I just want to point out, the land use coordinator is paid through four accounts. So it's through Conservation, Planning, Zoning Board of Appeals, and then also the Conservation Fund. And we were able to, this past year, very, very excited that we were able to hire the land use coordinator, and he was actually a former member of the Conservation Commission. So he had 17 years on the commission. He wanted to, he actually loved being on the commission, but he wanted to work for the town. So stepped off of the commission and into our office, and we are thrilled to have him. So in the past year, well, actually, he actually only just started since November. He's already made a huge difference. This has allowed us to have somebody in the office who can go out at a moment's notice to go out to sites, If there's we get calls for concerns, hey, there's a bulldozer near the wetlands, or somebody's working near the pond or something like that, he's gone out just really kind of immediately. So we have somebody in the office. He handles all sorts of deadlines, postings of meetings, handles decisions that have to go out. There's like just a million timelines on this position. So he works closely with Adam to make sure that all things are posted correctly. And I'm actually happy to tell you this. We're able to, years ago when we proposed this position, we've never had anybody in the position to be able to have the experience. We've actually taken in some fines for this, so close to $6,000 in the short time that he's been in the role. So again, it's not our goal to fine people, but when people are not paying attention to the orders that the commission has put in place, then fines are issued. But having the ability to recognize when people need advisement, you can see any time, like during the day, he's helping people fill out the applications, trying to make the process easier, because the applications can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. They're state applications, so he'll often come out and say, okay, here's what you need to fill in. So I'm happy to tell you that's what's happening in conservation. Very exciting in the past several months.
Any questions on conservation?
All right, so animal control. As I...
You're gonna let Amy come up to the podium? 'Cause I know she's trying to hide back there, but... You're taking the notes.
I would love to actually invite her up, because we've had, this is an area of the budget that we've had some significant changes. And as I mentioned, in the past year, we had some unforeseen staffing changes and things that have happened over the past year with the kennel being completely full with animals. So if I can let Amy provide the update for animal control.
Hi, thank you, Darlene. So we have seen a lot of changes in the division within the past year. Like Darlene had mentioned, we've had some staffing changes. So we did unexpectedly have 2 employees leave the position of on-call animal control. So it is a difficult role to fill. Animal control does serve the town 24/7, 365. So holidays, nights, weekends, and, in part with regular business hours. So, there is a high level of responsibility and expectation that we do put on the assistant animal control officers and the position in general. As a division, we're responding alongside our police and fire department on emergencies on site, providing services to the community. We manage the municipal animal shelter in town. So again, that's another component that's 365 days a year. For the past several years, we've seen a shift in animal control, animal welfare since COVID. So we really haven't had a time since COVID where our animal shelter has been empty. So that does have some staffing challenges that come around with that as well. So we operate the shelter through the animal control budget. So that's facility maintenance, that's staffing, that's animal supplies. Last year we housed, we had an intake of just under 100 animals. So that's, if you average that out, that's an animal pickup every couple of days. We do have periods through the year where, typically winter might be a little bit slower for the animal pickup portion, animal care at the shelter. Spring, summer, early fall being a little bit heavier just based on levels of outdoor activity of our residents, wildlife calls that we're responding to. So it does have a heavy burden supporting physically the shelter, the staff, in addition to the animal care portion of it. There's the law enforcement side as well of animal control, so supporting animal cruelty investigations in town. So just within the past 4 months, we've had 6 animal cruelty investigations that we've been active in. 3 have resulted in criminal charges. 3 were animal abandonment cases within 2 weeks of each other. So that does, again, put a heavy load on the department. Along with our law enforcement cases, that presents different challenges as well. So in animal cruelty investigations, the animal is actually considered evidence of the crime. So the town then has the responsibility to house those animals at the shelter. So again, we're looking at situations where we're housing animals for long periods of time, and that's something that we've experienced in the past few months with the cases that we've had, where we've had to house 5 dogs at the shelter for upwards of, actually the entire 4 months, the past 4 months. So that does put another financial burden on it. But I am proud to say that for the most part, we are able to make the shelter relatively self-sustainable. So we do collect fees. So when animal control picks up an animal and it's being reclaimed by the owner, the fees that they pay for pickup, boarding, does get deposited into a revolving account that we then use to help support the care of the animals, facility maintenance. So we try to keep as many of those costs in-house as possible. And also, looking at grants that are available to help cover some of the costs of the animals, because again, we're providing emergency medical care to some of these animals if we're picking them up injured. If they're not claimed by an owner, then that's a responsibility that the town has to take on for providing that care and paying for it. If the animal's reclaimed, we are able to recoup some of those costs from the owners. But again, just the climate of the world and the industry right now, we're seeing more and more situations where animals aren't being reclaimed, and then we're faced with the situation of animals that we're housing, trying to find placement for them in shelters and rescues that are already full, and the expenses that come with that. We have had situations in the past 2 months where we have had every dog kennel filled in the shelter. So we have space to house 7 dogs individually in the kennels, and then we had another pickup that same day, and we had to temporarily house a dog in our cat and small animal room because we just didn't have the physical space for it. Luckily, it was something we were able to remediate pretty quickly, but those are the challenges that we're facing. So some of the changes that have been made in the past year with the loss of former assistant ACOs, we did have to hire 2 additional assistant animal control officers, that they have been a great support to the department. With their support, I'm not on call 24/7 and in the office, so I really appreciate the help that they're able to support and provide to us. So the assistant animal control officers have a rotating schedule that I create monthly, so that way the burden isn't on one individual to make themselves available and have a phone next to them as they sleep to wake them up when an emergency happens and they need to be called in. So typically, we have somebody on call every night from the time that town hall closes until we reopen in the morning. We have somebody on call on on weekends. So they do also have to provide care to the animals at the shelter. And again, since we haven't had really a period of time where we have had the shelter empty, that means we're staffing 7 days a week. And then we also have holidays. So anytime the town hall's closed, we still have somebody available to respond to calls. We have somebody going down to the shelter, taking care of the animals. So Christmas Day, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, we have people working. And we were also fortunate to have support from town administration to hire, as part of one of our assistant animal control officers, to get weekday support as well. So we do have an assistant that is currently providing 19 hours of support to myself in the office. So she is able to help me with some of the call responses and enforcement side of animal control, because we do also enforce dog licensing in town. So the town clerk's office is the department that collects the fees and issues the licenses for dog licenses in town, but animal control is the enforcement agent for that. So with her help, we're able to get those numbers back where they should be.
Do you adopt out of the shelter directly to?
So we are registered with the state to be able to do direct adoptions out of the shelter. In some situations, we are able to do that, but a lot of times that does take a lot more of an investment into the animal, either time-wise and monetary, because there are certain standards that we have to follow by the state. So the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources, we have to make sure animals are vaccinated, spayed and neutered before adoption. So sometimes that might mean an adoptable animal is staying at our shelter longer to meet those qualifications, when we have the possibility to instead transfer the animal out somewhere else, have another organization kind of pick up those costs that are associated with it, and get the animal moved in a quicker time frame than we might be able to do.
We were talking earlier about the chicken vote, and I'm curious as to how many calls you get over like farm animals as opposed to cats and dogs or chickens.
We get a lot, and chickens are definitely a hot topic. We've seen an increase in people that want to do backyard farming, increase their own personal sustainability, feeding their own families. One of the issues that we've noticed in town is we don't have regulations for that. So it's something that our department has been working on for several years. We've brought it in front of town meeting at least twice to try to get regulations in place, because it's something that we receive a lot of complaints for. While backyard chickens in the right areas are great, it's not sustainable to the community to have them everywhere. If you're in a tight neighborhood, we've had situations where people are using their neighbors' fences to help keep their chickens contained. Issues with specific to chickens getting loose, wandering onto people's properties. Unfortunately, sometimes with livestock type animals, there's an increase in rodent activity, so additional rat complaints. So it's something that we're seeing a problem. Typically this time of the year, your local stores, your Tractor Supplies, agricultural stores have little chicks available for purchase. So people start purchasing the chicks, bringing them home, and we're in a bit of a bind where we don't really have anything that we can enforce. But I am happy to say that we have pursued with town administration the formation of an agricultural committee. So that committee was just fully filled. So it's a 5-member committee with one alternate on it, and they will be reviewing some of the concerns that we're seeing related to agricultural animals in town, livestock, and hopefully it's a goal that we would like to see the committee make a recommendation for some sort of bylaws or regulations in town for that, because the issues aren't just limited to chickens. We've had to respond to loose cattle in town. We've had loose goats in town. And obviously those become a public safety concern. So we had once a report of a resident that got a cow. It escaped from their property and ended up on the train tracks right next to Route 20. So obviously there needs to be some regulations put in place just for the public safety aspect of it.
Third time's going to be the charm.
We're hoping.
I have a couple of questions. The agricultural committee, is it currently fully staffed?
So it's a volunteer committee. We, I believe, just filled the last position within the past 2 weeks. So we are hoping to get that committee moving forward with their first meeting so they can have an organizational meeting and we can kind of discuss goals with them and get them on a regular meeting schedule.
I was listening to the on-call holidays and weekends of the support that you get. How many of those calls do you get are tagged animals that a lot of people might have a cat or a dog that's really confined to the home. They go out to get some groceries out of the trunk, the dog gets loose and starts zipping around the neighborhood. I'm just curious, do you get calls for animals that are escaped from their house and then the owners, frantically out there trying to get them again?
We do. Yeah, we get a wide variety of calls. A lot of times if people, if they have their dog licensed in town, the dog is wearing their tag, we're picking the animal up and we're not necessarily bringing it to the shelter. If the owner's, doing everything correct, and we understand accidents happen, and we can just pick the animal up, look them up in our system, because we are in OpenGov for our dog licensing, and get the dog back home without it physically needing to enter the shelter, we're more than happy to do that, to expedite it, one, for the department, but also, make things easier on the owners, easier on the animal.
But you do get, you'd say, a good volume of calls that have the need for you to go and help rescue a pet that already belongs to a family.
Yep, so we do have a slightly different response for dogs versus cats for calls, because we do have restraint bylaws in town that require, owners to keep their dogs contained. We don't have containment laws for cats. So the response for cats is more situational, because we don't have any regulations that say owners can't allow their cats outdoors. So if it's a healthy, friendly cat, we provide advisement when people call, and we offer tips. We might go out and scan it for a microchip, but that doesn't always necessarily result in picking up the animal. It still results in a response from our department, but typically our cats if we're picking it up, have we, done the legwork already to see, is this animal owned in the community? That involves, we take pictures, we share it on the town's social media pages, again, scan it for a microchip. Sometimes we put temporary collars, like paper collars, on the cats with little messages on them. If this is your cat, please contact our office. And we have actually found out cats are owned that way. They go home, their owners say, well, my cat came home with a message to call you. I'm not sure why. So then we provide some advisement to them. But usually if we're picking up a cat, we might know that it's already a stray in the area, or it might be sick or injured, and we have to seek medical attention for it.
Great, thank you.
Do cats require a license?
Not in Auburn, so we don't do cat licensing in Auburn. They are required to have a rabies vaccine based on state law. There are some communities that do have cat licensing, though, but Auburn's not one of them.
I did have one other question, actually, since you brought it up. I meant to ask, why all of a sudden did the vaccination line go empty on your budget?
Sure. So that was a multifunction line item that we've used. So we've used the vaccination as a rabies vaccination and management line item. So that we've used in the past for employee protection, because we are at an increased risk as animal control officers to the rabies virus. We're handling animals that have an unknown vaccine status. We're handling wildlife. We're at a higher risk for animal bites, scratches, things like that. And we've also used the line item in the past to vaccinate animals that we've had for rabies, or when we have to submit animals for rabies testing, because that is a portion of this, of the Animal Control Division as well. So if there's a suspected rabies exposure with wildlife, we do have to submit that sample to the state for testing, which does incur a cost to the town. Understanding that the budget has gone up in other areas, we were trying to find a way to sustain the
Sure,
budget.
but I want to make a motion to amend this budget, because I think putting the safety of our animal control officer is at risk, because she did comment that they do use this for care. I don't want a stray animal out there to bite one of our animal control officers and then end up with rabies. So I'd like to make a motion to amend this budget $500 to put something back in the vaccination line. I just think you have to have something there.
I'll second the motion so that we can vote on it.
Can we just, put it for discussion? I'm just curious if town management has any other funds or accounts that they would utilize for such.
Well, we can definitely put it up for discussion. I just don't think I'm going to be comfortable approving. So the dilemma and why I bring this up is because I believe when we're done with the next budget, we're going to vote for this as a whole. And then I'm going to not be in favor of it because of this one line. And I don't want to, I'm going to hold the rest of the, I mean, I could still lose because you can all vote the way you are. But I'm just saying that I don't think we're remiss in our responsibilities to allow somebody to take and get a hold of an animal who's got rabies, get bit, and save a few dollars when it's going to cost over $1,000 to treat that person. I'm glad I asked because I'm just sort of shocked that this line has been
But
vacated.
You're not saying that people aren't getting the care they need. You're just saying you just moved the budget into,
No, they're not vaccinating their animal control officers that go out to rescue these dogs.
If I can answer the question. So we have explored in the past year other ways to try to provide vaccinations and routine, what's called a titer test, to measure an employee's protection level if they've already had the vaccines. So there is some funding available through the Human Resources budget. But again, this line item has had a multifunction to it where we've used it for rabies testing. So not every exposure may result in needing treatment. Sometimes we can mitigate that by having the animal tested. So that's a situation where we might utilize that line item. Rabies vaccinations, I can tell you, they are very expensive. They've recently changed the protocol for the vaccines, but to be considered fully protected, it is a series of 3 vaccines.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So the first vaccine is given, another vaccine is given within a month, and then another vaccine booster is given within a year. Individually, those vaccines are about $412 per vaccine, and that's only a preventative. If there was an exposure, so if somebody was bitten by confirmed rabid animal and they have already had the what's called a prophylaxis series, they still need to receive treatment. So they would still need additional rabies vaccines. But again, there are, I don't want to misguide you, there is other funding available through the Human Resources Department for employee health-related items, but
Well, then
we have
that
utilized
sets better
this.
with me. I needed a more concrete answer, which you didn't provide when you were just going over the material, and I saw it blank. So again, I just want I want to be, responsible to the employees of the town, and I just didn't want it to appear while it was before us with no knowledge of it, to just have a vaccination line go empty and then have us be remiss in thinking we were being negligent towards the care of our employees. But if you've got other resources, such as HR, then I'll withdraw my amendment.
Karen, can you just confirm that any town employee that was in need of a vaccination due to an animal bite, whether a DPW, a police fire, or an animal control officer would be?
Oh, absolutely, we would definitely take care of that. And, as you've seen through some of the past, too, there are some years where we haven't spent anything, and some
Well,
years
yeah, I was
where we
wrestling
have.
with it. That's why I brought up the question. I was trying to understand it. And to take something like a vaccination line, and I know, again, we have to be careful. We have like 46 spaces for letters. But once she had said that there was a risk to the, because my ears are popped wide open, it's budget season. So once they said that there was risk to an employee, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't being negligent in our view and oversight of the budget, that's all.
No, we would never let anything go by that needed to be done.
I'm not saying you would.
We would find a
Right.
way to make sure that everyone was kept safe and.
And the fact that it's been acknowledged as a shared line, I just want to, and like she stated a little while ago, there are resources available from Human Resources. There's other ways to take care of this. So, I'm going to withdraw my amendment. But as it stood earlier in the presentation, I was very uncomfortable thinking that, this could have just been an oversight. And there have been approved budgets with oversights. So that's really why I brought it up, just to be thorough.
Yeah, it was a safety issue you were
Yeah.
thinking of, yeah, makes sense.
If I may. So thank you very much for noticing. We did have it as a request, and that item, that line item, as Amy is describing, it is a multifunctional line item. We had a major change in the department, so we recognize that we have an increase, significant increase within the staffing. So we worked with town administration, and they said, is there any way that, we can maybe take a look at that line item. So HR was able to take on the vaccination responsibilities for our staff. So that part moved over, but that also, like, just so you're aware, that line item, it's there because we never really know how many exposures we're going to have. Obviously, it's not something that, like, you can, I think, you know, as far as when we have to submit those to the state, there's a cost of doing that. So the animal has to be collected, so you have to have a staff person go out, collect the animal, has to be brought to a vet, professionally euthanized, prepared. Yeah, and so that all incurs, like, every one of those pieces incurs a cost, and so we could have no exposures, or we could have, 6 exposures. I mean, one year we did, Amy was like out all the time collecting these. So that's why it's there. You know, the staffing needs have changed over to the HR, and that was through the support of town administration. So HR does take on the vaccination part of it and the prophylaxis, but it doesn't mean that we don't need money there. So we're willing to obviously work with town administration and, you know, see how it goes, and, you know, we may be back next year and ask you for it.
So my question's going to be relative to, are there any offsets or other grant sources or any other ways that we sort of minimize the impact on this budget? Certainly, I think it's important, this one's an important year to discuss this because you've got such an increase. I mean, I think of all your other divisions, they were all 1.7s, 1.8s, and this one is bumping the entire division up to 6.6 just on this one budget.
Sure.
But, you know, where else are you trying to minimize things? And as I was sitting here in different discussions, you know, I know that we see the overlay of all of our budgets. So I'm thinking, you know, when we see Bay Path come before us, you know, they have a vet tech program. Are there internship opportunities to help care for some of the dogs? We do Norfolk Aggie for larger animals. You know, so there's that's just where I see some of the overlap relative to your work. So I just, you know, what else is out there and where we're trying to minimize some of our costs?
Sure. I will, I'll have Amy jump in, but there's like 3 things that are jumping off my lips. So for the assistant animal control officer that we're now providing to Amy within the office, so they are already looking at all of the delinquent dog licensing and late fees. So that is an area that Amy just literally didn't have time to chase that. So that is already something that we're bringing in more money by having the extra staff on some of those delinquent fees. We already looked at it with town administration to take a look and see what the late fees, you know, maybe those can be looked at to see if you have an animal and you're a responsible animal owner and you're getting it licensed, great, no change to your license. But if you are somebody that habitually does not license your dog and those late fees can add up, those are things that we're looking at. So we're not looking to hurt people that are doing it the right way, but maybe people that are not as responsible in their duties. Amy also is very active with the state for, I know I'm going to mess up the acronym, but the Mass MVMA for...
Yep, the Massachusetts Veterinary Medical Association.
So she's very active on that, and so there's money that comes from the state for a certain number of stray animals that need care and spay or neuter services. So she actively seeks that out. And then a third thing that I know, like, literally we're in it right now, and I'd like to, you know, just let you know something really happy. Amy is very active on social media and very connected with, you know, people that want to partner with the town. So we have a resident right now that is coordinating a youth group, and Junior and National Honor Society, and they literally have a donation drive right now for the kennel to help supply some supplies. So anything that they donate, we're, as municipal employees, we can't ask for donations, but if somebody comes to us and says, hey, what do you need? We get a whole list. So they're working on a list that Amy had provided. So any donations that we get in, we don't have to take out of these line items. So those are just like some immediate things that I can tell you that we're actively always, trying to, look for ways to reduce that. Am I missing?
Yeah, if I can just add to that. So we're always looking for different ways and unique opportunities to offset the costs. So like Darlene mentioned, there is funding available through, it's essentially the Veterinarian Association in the state. We utilize 100% of the funds that they make available to us every year. There's also programs through the state to help provide some medical costs to animals that we have in the shelter. Unfortunately, sometimes, though, it is state money, so sometimes there may be a delay in the time frame that we're able to get that funding. We've looked into opportunities for, do we have any volunteer opportunities in the shelter? You mentioned some of the high school programs. It's a bit of a unique situation at the shelter because there is an increased liability having other people come into the facility. The animals that we have in there, some of them may just be regular cats and dogs from somebody's household, but we're also holding dangerous animals related to court cases or dangerous dog hearings. So there is an increased liability and risk to having other people handling those animals. And certainly, we would take consideration if it were a minor part of a high school program, because it is a bit of a different setting if they're being trained in a veterinary clinic setting where an owner is bringing in their animal, there's a known history with the animal, the behavior, its medical history, what vaccines it's had, versus animals that we're getting in that might have contagious diseases, unknown vaccine history if they've ever been vaccinated, and unknown temperaments. And again, every animal might be a little different too in a shelter environment. The budget that we have proposed, based on the number of annual animal intakes, we're looking at about $27 per animal that we would be using in this budget towards the animals that we're taking in. But like I said, we do try to be as self-sustainable as possible with the revolving account, and try to work within the budget if things get tight towards the end of the year to make some requests to transfer and move money around to be able to support all of the animals, because none of the animals are ever suffering down there. We treat them like our own, and we do everything that we can to make their stay in a shelter as pleasant as possible. But again, we also try to move them out so they're not stuck in a municipal animal shelter.
So I think that was a good point, you brought up the revolving account. So obviously as a dog owner, I'm looking at this going, that's, 1 year's vet bills for my dog, and there's no dog food here, which I know it's, $60, $70 a bag. That's not here, so those other costs are coming from, are being supported by the revolving account, which is licenses and fines?
So the animal control revolving account is separate, so those are just fees that we're directly collecting. So most of the time, those are boarding and pickup fees. So we do have a fee, if the animal comes into the shelter, that would be our pickup fee. If it's staying overnight, those would be considered boarding rates. So those would get charged. If we're adopting animals out, we do have a relatively low adoption fee compared to other organizations, but that's money that would get deposited into the revolving account and then be used to help support the shelter, either the animals directly or the facility, because again, it's an entire facility that we're supporting as well that has its own additional costs. Heating, hot water tanks that unfortunately in Auburn we have to replace a little frequently. We've been able to make major upgrades to the kennel without asking for too much money beyond what we've had in our revolving accounts and in the budget, replacing all of the kennels, replacing any rusty equipment that could be a danger to the animals or staff. We have a plan for redoing our outdoor kennels and the patio area for the spring that we're very excited about. So we have been able to make a lot of improvements and progress for animal control with what we're allotted.
I think my last comment is going to be, you mentioned unfortunately earlier, animal cruelty criminal cases. Do we seek restitution? Do we provide any documentation to the police departments relative to, for when these people go to court, that they're making some sort of restitution to the costs that the town's incurred?
We do. So we certainly always advocate for the town to try to recoup some of the costs that are associated with the animal cruelty cases and holding animals long-term. Unfortunately, that does end up in the court's discretion, whether or not we're allotted restitution. There are other processes that we take during animal cruelty cases to secure what would be considered a bond petition for the animals, a bond for security, where we do ask the courts to make the owner responsible for the fees associated with holding the animal. And then if the court is in favor of that and we're granted the bond, the owners have a certain amount of time to pay those associated costs. If they're unable to, then the animals would be forfeited to the ownership of the town and we could move forward with them. But unfortunately, a lot of those end up at the discretion of the court system. So we do work with our police department, town council, to try to recoup those costs, but a lot of times we're not getting those costs back.
And we do also have a animal donation account separate from the revolving account. So, sometimes we're very fortunate to have people donate directly to that. So we, over the past several years, we've tried to put things in place where if people want to help, they can. But typically the dog license fees and the late fees those go into the general fund. So we feel like having somebody to help support animal control, grab those late fees for people that are not licensing, that's time well spent.
Is that something we should suggest, that the licensing fees actually go into the revolving fund? Is that something we should recommend to?
So if I can just comment on that. So animal control doesn't collect the licensing fees. Those fees are collected by the town clerk's office. I do believe in the past a portion of the fees that have been collected have been allocated to animal control to help support the functions of the division, but it's not a fee that we're directly collecting.
You also mentioned that sometimes you have to euthanize. Is that basically paid with outside money, or is that somewhere in this budget somewhere?
So if in the circumstances where we have to provide any sort of medical care to the animal, we're doing that within our own budget. So either within the budget in front of you or through the revolving account. I can tell you we don't euthanize animals frequently. We do everything that we can to prevent a situation like that, but again, we have animals for all different reasons. So some of them may be in a medical state that we've tried to work with a veterinarian to get them to a healthy point again, but it might not be a possibility. We might be picking up severely injured animals that it might be in the animal's best interest to humanely euthanize them, or again, sometimes we do have animals that would be considered a public safety risk due to bite histories and aggression issues, where we might have to make decisions like that. But again, it would be considered a medical cost that we would support through either the budget or the revolving account.
How does a deer strike get handled?
Sure. So it depends on the situation. Sometimes the deer is able to get up and leave on its own. There are actually reports of three-legged deers that have survived. But a lot of times a deer strike is a fatality. That's typically handled through the police department, where the animal has to be euthanized on the scene.
There's actually a whole process, legal process by which they have to be tagged and within so many hours, and it's there is a whole process for that.
We hit one night, so I'm pretty sure that's what happened when I left, but, the state police showed up, so.
Any additional questions on animal control? Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you, Amy. Great job.
doing that.
Sure, thank you everyone for your time.
So the other two that fall under you, they're under a different...
Separate budgets.
They're separate budgets, so I think we'll take...
Motion to recommend the town manager's Department of Developmental and Inspectional Services budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take the town manager's recommendation of $887,253 for DDS. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Move on to zoning board of appeals, 176.
Thank you. So Zoning Board of Appeals is a regulatory board, and they are comprised of residents in the community, and they hear appeals from the decisions made by the zoning enforcement officer, and they are also, they hear applications for special permits or variances. One of their big roles that you may have heard is a comprehensive permit that is issued for 40B projects. So with the past year, there has been a heavy responsibility on the board for that. And with that also comes a lot of legal issues that come up from at least from what we've had many 40B projects before. Mary D. and JB are, some examples of like school reuse buildings. Those were fairly straightforward. We have Albert Street. We have a large development going on actively right now with several buildings completed, and a new building going up about every 6 weeks. But currently before us, we have one active and one application that just came in, and various others in process. So the Board of Appeals, we provide administrative support, and one thing that I can tell you, this portion, you really only have very minimal, this is 1/4 of for the salary support for the land use coordinator. One nice thing that I'd like to just let you know about is we were able to get a state grant, actually maybe January. Adam and I were able to speak with the state, and they were able to provide a consultant for $15,000, I believe it is, to provide assistance, and it's literally a 40B expert, so expert consultant, to provide support to the Board of Appeals and actually administrative support to us to help us through that process. So that's something that's new and really just timely in the past 3 months. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's from the state,
That's from the state. Yep.
that kind of blows up the unfunded mandate complaint that,
Yeah, I mean, it's Massachusetts, it's another acronym, Mass Housing Partnership, I think it is. And they do, so they offer 2 grants. The first one, I believe, is $15,000. The second one, they will offer for $10,000 for a second project. So they're basically trying to, give wings to the boards so that they can, go through the questions and the trainings. We actually had a public training, and we have it posted on the website. And it's helping the town to figure out how to handle 40Bs and all the issues that come with them, how to deal with those. And honestly, she's wonderful. She's been very available for our office. She's helping prepare the decision She's able to like say, no, you can't do that, no, you can do this, offering options. So I know it's a challenging application for the town to have, especially multiple, but at least having somebody who, I think she said she was doing it 30 years? Some crazy amount, like 20, 30 years she's been doing it. So it was kind of like it just,
I didn't know it was that old.
yeah, she's been providing advisement, so she's a professional consultant. So we're fortunate to have her.
Any questions on Board of Appeals?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend the town manager's recommendation of $15,800. All in favor?
Aye.
And our final one for tonight, solid waste and recycling, 433.
All right, so one of my favorite budgets. Solid waste and recycling, I'll just give you some quick, I know it's getting late, so I could talk forever on this, but you tell me when you want me to stop. So we have about 5,200 customers on the solid waste and recycling municipal program. The program we're very proud of. It's very competitive. If you were to go out to the private sector, we offer awesome service. It's literally curbside service. They're in carts, so it's contained, so it looks visually nice from the curbside. Weekly pickup for trash, and bi-weekly for recycling. We have our solid waste and recycling coordinator does like literally canvas the town for we have 6 different routes, and so she'll go around. She's not flipping open the lids, but if there's anything that is jumping out of the lids, like I actually very close, I was coming into town one day, and we had somebody that had all sorts of fluorescent light bulbs out of the
Sticking out of the top?
Yes, yep, that would be something that, okay, we definitely don't want to put somebody in harm's way, especially, you know, the person putting them in or the driver picking them up. Our coordinator will provide advisement, and also when she notices somebody's cart may be broken, she'll get new carts for them. We have curbside yard waste collection in both the spring and the fall. We have licensing of haulers in town, so we actually license anybody that goes through town. It's an old term word, a fall. So it's basically anything like trash, septic, grease, anybody that's driving through town with something like offensive. So we actually license them. We do annual licensing and inspections of them. Several years ago, we put into place donation bin regulations. So you'll see like donation bins around town. We're very proud of those. We encourage people to use them as long as they're maintained and permitted properly. We really want people to use them. If you put clothing, books, shoes, small housewares in those bins, it stays out of the trash. Because when people have like a broken coffee maker, they're like, what do I do with this? And throw it in the trash. It's no good for us. It adds to the tonnage. It's not appropriate. Sometimes the driver will say, no, you can't get rid of that. We encourage people to use those donation bins. Several years ago, we had problems, which is why we had to kind of put the regulations in place. We had people doing illegal dumping. I'm sure you've seen certain areas of town, and we got rid of those problem bins. So the bins that we have out, we maintain, and we try to establish good relationships with those people. We want their business. It helps us on the tonnage side. We have several programs that the coordinator oversees. She helps with string light disposal and recycling. We have the Mercury shed. I don't know if you've driven around the back. We have a shed literally at the end of the building. We collect mercury bulbs, mercury batteries, lithium batteries. Everything goes in the shed, and we're able to get rid of it absolutely for free, and it keeps it out of the waste stream. And mercury has a health component to it, that we don't want people ingesting that, the dust from that. It can be dangerous. So we have a really successful program on that, and doesn't cost anything. We sell discounted Sharps containers so that Sharps don't end up in the trash. So we have Sharps containers that are discounted. We have the med drop box at the police station. So if you have expired meds, you can get rid of those for free, clear them out of your house, and that program is unbelievable. We have to empty that usually about monthly, every 4 to 5 weeks. The thing is completely full. Again, that doesn't cost us anything. NEDT in Sutton is a year-round option for people to get rid of hazardous waste. We do events every 2 years for household hazardous waste. But if somebody has you're cleaning out your garage or your basement, and you find like mercury or used oil, something nasty, you can get rid of it at NEDT in Sutton, so right down 146, about 15 minutes from here, and we're very proud of this. The first $85 is free. So you can go there, they come right out to your car, they see what you have, and they give you a price, and if it's $85 or less, you don't pay anything. If it's more than that, then they take the $85 off. So that's really exciting. We put that into place a couple years ago, and that's paid with grant money, no taxpayer dollars. Then we have compost bins and rain barrels, also part of that. That also helps take food waste out of the waste stream, which is the heaviest component of waste. So we encourage people. This program has taken off in the past several years. Really very exciting. We have a couple of events that are notable. The Household Hazardous Waste, again, every 2 years. And then we do a cleanup day every year, which is just a fabulous day. So we work with the chamber. We partner together with area businesses, and we're able to take all sorts of different things for free. And people come out, clean up the litter in town, and then we have a partnership with some waste haulers in town. So Casella is going to donate some of their services to help take certain items, so metal, mattresses, we've got mercury, batteries, sneakers. We've got all sorts of things. It's very exciting. She coordinates those events, and then we also get a recycling dividends rewards program. We got a little over $15,000 for things that we do, like these sort of things. So it's just like a highlight of some of the things that we do in solid waste and recycling. For the budget, this is pretty straightforward. There's really not much to the budget as far as the breakdown. So we have salary for the coordinator. We have a part-time clerk in our department that we share with the finance department. And then we actually have the heavy lift is the collection and disposal costs. So that's going to be for the municipal program. The hauler actually picks up the trash, recycling, and then yard waste. And so those are hauling costs. And then they will transport from our community. Recycling goes to Hardscrabble Road, and trash goes to Worcester. It's called Win Waste now, but you probably remember it as Wheelabrator. So it's right on Route 20. So we are very fortunate, we're very close by to that. A lot of towns pay a lot more than us because they have to bring it a further distance. There's about a 3% increase in these numbers that you see, and the only thing that I would caution is the uncertainty that's just in the world right now with everything happening. Diesel and fuel cost, we are doing our best to try to plan for that, but that's the only area that I can't tell you that I feel completely comfortable, but I don't know how you'd feel comfortable budgeting for that because it's unknown what's going to happen. So diesel and fuel costs is the only thing that I would say is going to be a possible thing that we may have to look at once we're in the budget.
Patrick?
You ended with a couple of the questions I had. Given the diesel and fuel costs, are these fixed-in contract amounts over a fixed period of time, or are they variable annual rates?
Yes.
Because we have a fixed number, we have 5,200 citizens that are using it.
Yes. So for the contract, the way the contract is set up, it is a minimum of 4% or the year-over-year change in the Consumer Price Index, CPI, another acronym. So there's some cost that are out as far as what CPI is. And so those are determined once CPI is determined. So actually, it's typically in around this time of year, March or April, that the CPI is determined for, I know, some of these numbers. So it's a little ironic. You're doing a budget before you actually know what the CPI is. But in past years, we have budgeted and we have been okay. So these numbers I am being conservative, and I did, talk them out with, our CFO and our previous town manager, Ed, and he felt that we were in the right ballpark. But obviously, nobody has a crystal ball on what's happening in the world. So I just want to caution that might be a fluctuating cost.
The disposal cost is relative to the weight anyway, which would fluctuate?
Yeah, so, great question. So we have about 4,600 to 4,700 tons per year that we dispose of, and it's a cost per ton. So that also, we are looking at an increase. Again, that goes to CPI. So like conservatively, we went up about 3%. That has been really kind of where it's been in the past year.
Where does the,
Did you have I thought you had a hand up at some point.
Oh, sorry, no, I was doing some math.
I did have an additional question. Unrelated to the budget, but within the budget, there's, the word recycling appears. I know I'm going to open up a can of worms, but I'm still going to do it. Recycling appears on the very first line as a title, but nowhere else does the cost. So the recycling cost of the collection is part of the solid waste collection, and then the recycling disposal is part of the cost of the disposal. So the recycling is included in there.
It is, yep, great question. So that is under the solid waste collection.
Right.
That falls under, that's a portion under the contract that we have, that Casella takes the recycling, they transport it to Hardscrabble Road, and then there's a processing cost according to, it's like a formula, according to what the market rates are, and that fluctuates also monthly.
And I guess I'm going to dare to go there because it doesn't mean that because we start something and it seems like a great idea that it is. But I drive through town on collection day and I see a ton of people that are trying their darndest to try to separate their milk containers and various things. And some things say you can recycle them. Other things don't have the code. It seems like our economy or our world is not, the distributors haven't caught up after all of these decades of trying to recycle. And I know from living here in Auburn and traveling to family in Connecticut or Maine or Baltimore or Florida, that when I arrive in other people's homes, I can't help because I get the distribution list here that what's being recycled in another area isn't considered recycle here. Is there anybody driving, just in your professional opinion, it almost seems easier because it's very light and it's an empty plastic bottle to just throw it in the trash and reduce our tonnage than it is to be paying for all these extra dollars for recycling when it just doesn't seem like the nation has its act together. And I know I'm one person, but I can't help but to notice the large disparity in what's happening in just around us. And when I go into someone else's homes, I've had people in my home, and they walk by and they go, well, you can't recycle that. You can't, and that doesn't, so a lot of people's general concept of what's even falling into these two categories is so distorted after decades and decades. And we're spending money and we're going through this ritual. And I'm just wondering, while I had you, and in some ways it's relative, but it's not, but do you have a professional observation?
So this is a great question because even within the state, if you are at different recycling facilities, Springfield takes something different than Central Mass. And these are things that are, so there's an awesome video that somebody did because solid waste and recycling, people that are into this are into it. And there's like a video that they put out several years ago. Recycling is always changing, and they got kind of like a little song with it. And it shows...
The dance is coming.
It's honestly,
Too late to sing right now.
I just love this video, but it goes to the point of what you're talking about, like milk containers, like the cardboard milk containers. We used to always recycle those. They don't recycle those anymore within our program. Pizza boxes, people think you can't recycle a pizza box because it has like a little bit of grease on it. Yes, you can, but if you've got like, the last piece of pizza stuck to it, no, you can't recycle it with the last piece of pizza on it. So like food waste doesn't belong in recycling. They tried to, the state, DEP has put out all sorts of really cool marketing materials to try to make recycling and in placing waste appropriately in an easy way. So it's like 4 different categories. So you've got cans, you've got bottles, you've got paper, and I'm sorry, what's the last one?
Plastic.
Plastic, thank you. Sorry. So they're spending a lot of time on trying to make these things like cool and easy to follow because they know that for the most part, people like wish cycle. They want to recycle something because they know it's the right thing to do, but they end up putting it in the bucket and you can't recycle it.
Does that have a financial impact on our budget?
It does.
Because we're putting stuff in there that doesn't go in there.
So that's why we have the recycling coordinator out going around and looking at what's happening curbside, because if you can address things curbside and let people know, like, hey, this doesn't belong here, but let me show you where it does, there's value to that.
It's a little difficult if it's not overflowing, because they're just looking at a closed container.
It is.
Realistic.
But they do have, they do recycling audits, so they will take a portion of, say, route, like the Tuesday route. They'll say, okay, we're going to do an audit of Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And they will take that truck, okay, we're going to take Tuesday truck, you're going to go back, and then they'll dump it on the floor. It's actually pretty cool to see. They'll dump all the recycling on the floor, and then they have a worker that will pull out, like, everything that's trash. Trash goes over here, recycling goes over here, Tangler's over there, and then they measure it out. And if you have a proportionate number that's higher than what can be used for recycling, it's all considered trash. So now the whole thing gets sent to the wheel.
And then there's no, so if you look at the process, there's a process forward, but a lot of good it's doing them to do that exercise, because they're not reaching back out to the community and saying, listen, we found a disparity, and we want to educate you because things are evolving, and all of you people have done this, and that's the problem I'm having with all of this, is there's a process that, and you've articulated it perfectly, but where's the fix, you know?
So the fix is in education. So we have recycling dollars, we have grant money that doesn't, again, not part of this budget. We send out mailings that we have done in the past. So we haven't, I think we're due to do a mailing. We choose different things. We actually had, Pizza Cat, I think was actually Amy's cat. And it was a cat, something cute to catch people's eye, and it was all about why, can you recycle a pizza box? And then it showed like what you could and what you couldn't. And so you try to like match something that somebody would not think is boring and is cute or cutesy or like nice marketing material. And then you send the message. And then we also do outreach to the schools. We have programs that we do in the library to teach the young people. So we are really trying to get messaging out. You're welcome.
I just want to be clear, I could recycle a pizza box that's greasy.
Yes.
It seems to me, I wouldn't do mailings, I would buy stickers and have somebody go out and put a sticker on each lid.
We do that.
And then when they, well, I got a warning list, a warning once, that said I had, but it didn't tell me what it was.
Okay.
But that's not my point. If instead of sending out a mailing about what you can recycle, put a sticker that says you can or can't recycle this, like you have the instructions on the bin.
Yep.
So that when you're opening the bin or it's on the top of the bin, whatever, on the inside would be better because it wouldn't be exposed.
Even if DDI...
But you have that list that says pizza boxes is okay, milk cartons is not okay. And just have a quick list, because that's what you're mailing out, basically.
And we have done that. So we've done those mailings where it's actually a magnet, so you can take the mailer, like literally the mailer, and then you can stick it on your fridge. So we have done that in the past. We've done pizza box cat in the past. We've done plastic bags, don't bag your recyclables. Keep it loose, keep it free, like something cute, again, to catch people's eye on the wording. So those are things, the mailings we feel does help. We've also put messages on the back of your bill. It's like minimal cost, like $350. You're sending a message out to 52.
What I'm saying is, buy a decal and put it on the lid.
We do have those.
So that there's no, you put it there so they see it.
Yes.
And they're gonna see it 52 times. Or
Thank you.
26 times.
She does put
I'm not gonna put it
stickers
on my
on the,
refrigerator.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I might read it, but nobody else in the house will read it. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would be a little bit more proactive in getting the information where the information gets used.
So we ordered those stickers within the past, like, year and a half. So when she goes out and she has to stop because somebody has something that is not compliant, she adds the sticker and leaves a card. I'm sorry if you didn't understand what
years
the
ago,
warning
but-
was, but hopefully our programs come forward from there.
To just close and reiterate my point, and just there's a lot of other commercial, like large corporations, and like you said, what happens in one area doesn't happen in the next. And they've got these recycle things tattooed to their products, and we can't use them, and we don't know that. It goes back to your point that the average person that really wants to do a good job and has that separated in their home is probably contributing to the 80% that's now going to make the rest of the other 20 waste because they just have no way of getting in front of it.
I mean, I can tell you, the facility on Hardscrabble Road does an amazing job. So the truck will pull in, empties the material, it goes up on a conveyor belt, and there literally are people that will grab stuff off the conveyor belt that's not compliant, and they do it at like a lightning speed. So, you know, picture like 6 people on either side of this, and it's going by, and you're grabbing like different things. So they are going
Right,
through
the
it,
effort's being made,
but-
I
right.
understand.
But the more trash you have on there, they can't get everything, so.
Thank you.
And we do get a credit for the recycling at some point, at some degree, for cardboard, or is it all just?
So cardboard is, I think they call it OCC, so old corrugated cardboard. That market is usually like one of the most lucrative, but that goes according to like what's happening in the world, like,
Commodity.
yeah, exactly.
My other question is where does all the leaf pile stuff go?
So
It's getting rehauled.
yeah, so,
after they
great
grind it.
question. So the curbside yard waste gets picked up by the hauler, again. That program, they go on your trash day, they pick up your yard waste, they bring it to our DPW pile. It all goes there, and then once a year, DPW will get like a tub grinder, and then they grind all that material, and then, I'm sorry,
They were
I
doing
think
it this morning, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
I drove
It's
by it
usually
and they were doing it this
this
morning.
time of year. So,
My question is, where does it go then? Because it disappears.
yeah, I think that material, once you grind it up, it's like mulch, so it becomes very valuable. I can't speak how DPW gets rid of it, but I think they make some of that available for residents, if I'm not mistaken. But a portion of that money for the tub grinder comes from our contract. So we do get money from the hauler to kind of offset that.
And to that point, I just want to compliment your department because I've lived in Auburn for years, and even maybe less than a decade ago, I was one of those people that at least once out of the 4, 3, or 5, or if not twice, they were missing our street. And I'd have to say that in the last 2 or 3 years, it may have happened, but they're very much on the ball at returning, even the same day. And I want to thank your department, because I think you guys being the watchdogs and being a liaison, and with the citizens in the town being aware of having a place to call, that it's improved twofold. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to try and close out because as we're getting
Yeah.
late.
We
Just,
all the time, it got till midnight.
yeah. So just numbers-wise.
You do.
This one's obviously a big number, but residents pay a trash bill, correct?
Yes, the people that are on the program, the 5,200 plus.
Pay the trash bill.
Yes.
And that goes towards this number here? Does that go into, goes into the general fund to be utilized?
Goes into the general fund,
To be
and
utilized towards the payment of this amount. Is that correct? Just want to make sure that was on the record. Any other last-minute monetary questions?
Motion to recommend.
I agree with him that, you know, you see the trash in other towns and you just go, oh my God. Auburn is like light years ahead of them. We're doing a good job.
Just my compliments to you and your staff. This was a complicated presentation, and certainly you're passionate about everything within your department and knowledgeable as well, so it was an impressive, sorry we took a good chunk of your evening to get through all this.
But now in future years, the board won't change and we'll all be educated, so it'll just zip.
I forget from year to year. That's why I need somebody new every year.
thank you very much. I'm probably very biased, but I think we have the best department. But I am really very proud of my staff, and I appreciate all your questions. I spend a lot of time preparing, so I Thank you very much.
We have, on this, on the
Motion to
solid waste,
recommend?
we have a motion to recommend. And
We have-
and we got a second.
to
Oh,
pass it
George
first,
is speaking
don't
up.
we?
It's definitely getting late. George is piping in. So we have a
Pass this already? I recommend.
Motion to recommend.
So, solid waste, the town manager's recommendation is $1,477,633. And we had a motion and a second. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Very good. We had minutes. If there's no questions on the minutes, we'll deem them as being accepted. And we are at our point of adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned.